You guys doing well, packing, all that fun stuff?
Actually, none of that. We're not actually even packing right now. We're getting the house ready to sell, so we're fixing it up and doing
Okay.
that kind of stuff. But the biggest thing is we need to make sure that we have a place to go first. So a lot of the places
Right.
that we were looking at actually have already fallen off the board just because we want to move this summer, and
Gotcha.
and they just won't allow us to do it. Some states like Texas said that they would allow us to come down and for Ashley to practice pharmacy, but
Yeah, that's
there's
right.
but there's a 3 month wait on the applications. And so
Uh,
that might have just wiped Texas off the map because it's like we want to get out this summer, and
yeah.
if we have to wait 3 months, so
Well, it can always be another time that you go to. Of course, I mean, there are certain things going on in Texas, lots of immigrants coming over
yeah,
as well, not
it,
just from the north, but from the south.
yeah, and a lot of stuff going on here too. So I mean, Ontario just gave us another full month of lockdowns in Canada, and
Oh,
so
no way.
yeah, another
Oh,
full month that they're on the extreme lockdown. So no, we definitely want to get out of here because it's getting crazy up here in Canada.
yeah,
I mean,
that is crazy.
they just arrested a preacher. They sent SWAT into some church. It's actually crazy, actually crazy in Canada.
Wow.
You know, somebody's chanting North Carolina, North Carolina. We actually sent out Ashley's transfer of pharmacy license to every state. So we said, hey, well, let's just set the net wide and see if they would accept it. There was only four states that said maybe, and that
Oh,
we would accept it without having to work for 1,600 plus hours as an intern. And so there was only four such states, and one was Texas, one was Missouri, one was Wisconsin, and one was Michigan. And
oh,
yeah, and those are randomly the four states. But Missouri just got back to us and said, "Nah, we're not actually going to allow that to happen." And Texas just got back to us and said that it's a 3 month waiting period. And so yeah, so now we're down to Michigan.
some cold states.
Yes, we're down to Michigan and Wisconsin. So
Oh, wow. I'm sorry. Yeah,
yeah, so
that's
yeah, so I don't know. Maybe
yeah, yeah,
reason
yeah, you're right.
Wisconsin is one of the last two. So I don't know. Maybe we'll end up there. So hey, somebody's moving to Texas. So we got 27 people in here, so we can get this going. Welcome to
Nice.
this Sunday, April 18th, 2021 Fireside. We got a unique one today, again, very similar to the homeschooling Fireside, in which that we actually have three call-in guests that we have. We have Kaarina, we have Aaron, and we have Eric, and it's going to go in that order. And they're going to answer three questions however they want to go through it. When we went through the homeschooling one, we thought that we were going to maybe add a little bit of doctrine, a little bit of our thoughts, and then have everyone else do their thing. But then we found that we kind of ran out of time, and so what we read through what the three sent us, and it was really good. And so we're not even going to, just because we don't want to run out of time, I'm just going to hand the floor over to Kaarina, and I'm going to hand the floor over to Aaron when it's his turn, and I'm going to hand the floor over to Eric, and we're just going to let them go and do whatever they want and talk as long as they want. And because even if each of them talk for 20 to 30 minutes, that's only an hour and a half. So we're not going to put any stress on them. They can talk as much or as little as they want, answer those questions however they want. It's a really exciting topic, and it's going to be broken down into two different parts, because this one we wanted to talk about temporal preparedness, but in the next one that we wanted to go over in a couple weeks, we actually wanted to hit on self-reliance. So a little bit different, but we thought very cool subjects. So we're going to start with a prayer. I will let my first guest introduce themselves, introduce herself, and then we'll get into this.
All right. Go ahead with the prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. And from each other about temporal preparedness. And we say these things in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. All right, so let's hope the tech work. I've had no problems with the internet today, which means that it's probably going to die a bunch. But so we'll let Kaarina introduce herself, and then she will be our first speaker on this subject.
Okay, thank you. My name is Kaarina, and it's from Finland. I just want to let you guys know that my father is from Finland, so learned a lot from him about temporal preparedness as well. But let's see, I majored in dance, and I do a lot of nutrition. I'm a nutrition specialist, so this subject kind of hit home to me on temporal preparedness, and we'll go over that way it hit home. And so we'll just go from there. I do have 2 children and a husband, and we're all strong, and I'm going to share our awakening story with Micah, and he can read it. That way you don't keep hearing from me. But I'll go ahead and start with the first question. Of what have you found that works, as in food, water, fuel, when necessary, heating. So the things that have worked for us lately, every week, I made a list because I didn't know exactly how to answer it. Because he said food, water, and fuel when necessary. So like, oh, okay, I could do a bullet point of all of these kind of things and say what's worked for me and what works for our children and my husband and things. But every week, a gallon of water is between 79 cents and $1. And so we usually hit the 79-cent gallons, and we buy about 7 of them every week for our food storage just to add. So it's a weekly thing. But we also have a Berkey water filter that we use daily. So we can stock up on that distilled water. And if water doesn't run out, we can always use that for our main water source. We do also have those life straws. Micah had mentioned those in the temporal preparedness video that he did, which is really good. Also, listening to the 10 Virgin one is also a very good video to listen to as well that he did. But we do have those life straws for our last resort. They're in our 72-hour kit. And wheat is huge. We buy it in bulk, but apparently it's been going up. I've been looking at Amazon. It's been going up lately. I know that Michael mentioned one time in a Fireside that Brigham Young said something about what did you say about that, Micah? About the it being like the not just the staff of life, but that's like the money source or something. If you were out of, did Brigham Young say something like that?
There was actually a couple. I don't know if it was Brigham Young, but the quote was that if you have any excess money, I think it was actually Heber C. Kimball in a couple cases said that you should put your excess money in grain because there's more stability. Okay. There's more stability in grain than all the stocks and bonds and things like that.
Awesome. So yeah, there you go. So we do buy a lot of grain and canned foods that are on sale. Salmon, mackerel, sardines are some of the best fish, and they're really high in omega-3, which is really good for your brain and depression. So if you have depression, get some omega-3 from seafood. But beef, chicken, green beans, those are the things we enjoy. I'm grateful that my kids love fish. We've been feeding them since they were at least 1 year old. And that's the thing. If you have those things in storage that your kids eat, it's really easy then. So right now we're kind of low carb and high fat. So even though we have a lot of grain in storage, and my kids love bread, but we're more of the low carb right now, just trying to fix some gut problems. But we have things like coconut flour, flaxseed flour, canned coconut, and we put it into rotation. So if you have a problem like an IBS problem or a gut problem, or you're allergic to food, put the food that you normally have into rotation, and also the food that your children love into rotation. Well, this is what's worked for us. We bought a lot of collagen peptides from Costco, and they were on sale. So kids can't taste it, and it's a great source of protein. Also, whey protein is another great source of protein, and it's cheap. During COVID, it's been really cheap. Another thing that it's huge, being a nutritionist, I'm always trying to be aware of what goes into our body. And trace minerals, Himalayan salt or Redmond sea salt, iodine, B12, zinc, D3, lemon powder, which has vitamin C, cod liver oil. All of these things are super important for our bodies in order for us to function properly. Not have iodine helps with thyroid problems. B12 helps with so many things. Zinc and D3 are great immunity boosters during COVID, especially. So these are things that are really important to have on hand to me if I want to last an entire year of a drought where I can't get food anywhere. We love meat, so beef jerky and biltong and pemmican. If you can learn how to make these, this is like Native American food. You can YouTube those kind of things, learning how to make pemmican. It's like meat that you dehydrate, and then you put the fat in it with berries, and you wrap it around. It's really cool and fun to make, and it lasts about a year. And then also fat is super important. So we're all into ghee, powdered milk, powdered buttermilk. All of these things are super important for our body. Cholesterol, every single cell is made of cholesterol. And so I think it's super important that we give our bodies and our brain is just pure fat pretty much. And so our brains need those fat soluble vitamins and the fat in order to function. And I know everybody went out and bought toilet paper, paper towels and things last year. It was kind of hard for us to find since we don't stock up on those kind of things. But you be creative. You don't need those to survive. Cut up a shirt, but matches would be good to have on hand if you run out, especially if you have a gas stove. I think we were able to do that. I do live with my parents-in-law, and they have a generator, and that's been nice because it has gone on a couple of times in Colorado, in Denver, so because of the snows and things, but we've been good. But a lot of people around our city have had power outages. So even family members, and they were out for a couple of days. So I think it would be important to have one of those eventually when we get out of debt and have our own house. We'll probably get one. Learning how to ferment and pickle things, pickle veggies. That's an awesome thing. Those last for a long time. And a big thing, I think, is what has worked for us is we're almost out of debt. We're on our last month. This is it, April 2021. We just need one more client in order for it to work.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much. And we can't wait. We said it 2 years ago when we moved in with our parents-in-law that we're going to do it April 2021. And we need one more client for it. So we're just prayers, Micah and everybody. But get out of debt and stay out of debt. Do not go in debt, whether it's student loan or consumer debt. And we'll talk more about that later. But it's on the temporal preparedness awareness. Huge. Fasting. If you guys know about fasting, I think we all do, right? Saves money. Of course, we give a generous fast offering, but you can even fast without doing it for people as well if you want to, and it saves money, like intermittent fasting and things. So we can talk about that a bit later as well. There's a little bit about that health-wise. So I kind of went over our plan. Okay, so when we were in debt, it was a 25-year plan. And since when we got married, because my husband graduated and he graduated and then we got married and then we had this massive debt. And it was going to take 25 years to pay it off. And then it turned into, it's going to hopefully be by the end of April 2021, 6 years since we've been married that we've paid it off. And the reason why I think that's important to pay off student loan debt as soon as possible is because a 25-year plan, we would be paying double the amount of debt if we waited that long. And here we're paying it probably almost to the dollar or something if we did it in 6 years. So we're not giving them more and more money each time. Another way that we've been saving money, and it's been helping us with our temporal preparedness to be able to stock up, is we go to a food bank. Now, I know a lot of places have food banks around in America. I don't know about other places. I don't know. Do you guys have food banks in Canada?
Yeah, we have versions of that here and food drives and
Okay,
stuff.
food drives, cool. On the food bank that we go to, all we have to do is show that we live in a house. Some places, like in Texas, where my mother lives, she can't because she makes too much money, and they have to check and see how much money they make. But we've been able to, and they give away almost expired or already expired foods from Whole Foods, Sprouts, King Soopers, or in some places it's Kroger's or Fry's. And they have a lot of fruits, veggies, eggs, dairy, lots of frozen meat. Like, we save anywhere from $75 to $150 a week. And that's been a really nice way for us to get out of that debt as well. And they also give away canned items, cereals, flours, sugars, all these kind of things that we actually just say, okay, yeah, I'll put that in my cart and I use it for food storage. So that's been another cheap way that I've been able to have food storage. And some of the expiration dates are still from a year from now or 2 years from now. So that's awesome. So getting creative on how and where to get items has helped us become more temporally prepared. We get a lot of clothes given to us, so we haven't bought a lot of clothes for our children, which has been awesome. I'm grateful that my husband and I are not name brand people where we have to have Gap or BB or whatever on our shirts or anything. And that, and then we just give our clothes away once. It's really awesome. I don't know. That feels like law of consecration, where we get what we need and then we give what we can. Our kids also get very minimal screen time. So being temporarily prepared that way, if there were a power outage, they would just be fine. They wouldn't go through some kind of screen time withdrawal. They would be good with their creativity of drawing, grading, and playing. This one's a little short, which is good. That takes up less time. Number 2, this is the next question. And what have you found to be less effective, and what have you found to be setbacks or hindrances, and how you overcome these obstacles? So one of them is kind of less effective for us is we've tried gardening, but we're still very much beginners. I watch tons of YouTube on learning how to garden, and I'm still bad at it. It's also hard if you don't have your own area to garden. So since we live in our parents-in-law's house, my husband's parents' house, we don't have many areas to garden. So I do have some pots, and we have grown last year one dinky little corn. It actually grew, and my daughter enjoyed it. And we've grown parsley, basil, cilantro, and ginger. And we've tried to grow an apple from a seed, and it started growing but died off. We're going to try again this year again. But it's hard when you're in the city, I think. I know that there are amazing YouTubers out there that can grow. It does take a lot of work. I do homeschool my kids. and make all the food, you know, typical mom, housewife and stuff. So it's just a lot of work to add on, but we try. Living paycheck to paycheck, we have learned, is not effective at all. You can't get food storage. You're always scared about where are you going to get what you need for that. You live out of fear. It's just horrible. But overcoming this, we did take this financial self-reliance class. And my husband, you know, in the temple, we prayed and we got offered to move to our parents-in-law house. And we thought about it. We were like, I don't know. And then my husband got the answer in the temple that we need to get out of debt now. And this was the answer. So I'd say maybe take a financial self-reliance class. That's exciting that Micah is doing a fireside on this later. I'd love to hear people's stories of this. But my husband's also taken them get a better job and starting your own business. He's taken all three. I took the financial one with him. The biggest thing with these classes is to pray and research and pray some more and then move forward in faith. Even if you have to move across the country, like Micah and Ashley, or like how we did from Virginia to Arizona and then to Colorado. The Lord will help direct you. So that's number 2 for me. And then number 3 is, how do we go about raising awareness of this temporal preparedness? So I have a small story of when I was 12 to raise some awareness to start with, and then I'll go on with something else. Okay, so I was going to stay the night at a friend's house after our dance class, and we went back to her house. She has 3 sisters, so altogether there's 6 in her family, and including her parents. So just like my family, 6 people. Well, that night was the worst winter storm I had ever experienced, and they called it El Nino. I don't know if anyone remembered that way back when. I don't know, 37 now. That's pretty while ago. Well, I was stuck in her house for 4 days. And that night, I had already eaten dinner that my mother had packed. But when I woke up the next day, my friend's mom had said that she had just a loaf of bread and a box of crackers. She was supposed to go to the store that morning, but it had snowed, right? So, and they had no food storage. I wanted to be home so badly. We had food storage, a ton. And always a fridge that was full and a freezer that was full. So I was confused because they had nothing in their fridge or in their freezer, absolutely nothing. Their family was homeschooled too, which made me more confused, because you would think someone who homeschools their kids, this kind of prep would happen maybe, but nope, not at all. We, all 7 of us, lived off of white bread and crackers for those 4 days until my father, with his Land Rover and a wooden device that he built for the front of his Land Rover in those 4 days, came to plow his way over to their home to rescue me. This was a time without cell phones, and landlines were not working. He brought in a huge food basket that my mother made for the family, and then we adventured home. And there at home, I was able to relax, eat, be with my family. I was so grateful for my father that he was able to bring me home. It touches me a lot because it realizes like what are we doing to prepare our family and make sure that our kids are well nourished during a famine or during a storm or during where we have to use food storage and there's nothing else. And I'm grateful that my parents were able to realize that. I don't know why this family didn't, but it's just it's just a story to be aware of what am I doing for my family in these times of crisis. So now I would like to state some facts. So that's the end of that story. Now I'd like to kind of change the subject. And state some facts to think about in order to raise awareness on how we, at least the USA, are doing with our temporal preparedness. So back in 2019, 7 out of 10 homes were living paycheck to paycheck. This is from Dave Ramsey. So I don't know what the numbers are now since COVID, but I'm sure that the numbers have risen. Back in January of 2019, this is also from Dave Ramsey, he said over 1 million families had liquidated their homes to put it on a credit card for whatever they are buying. So I also can't imagine the liquidation that is going on since 2019. And since COVID, this was kind of outrageous to me too. I put a little picture in the paper. 42% of Americans report undesired weight gain during COVID. The average weight gain is 29 pounds and 41 pounds for millennials. That's me. Well, not me. I didn't gain it, but a lot of people did, millennial-wise. This will ramify for years to come. And the reason why it will ramify for years to come, we will talk about it a little bit in here. Let's see, the senior population, those who are 65 and older, comprises of 13.7% of the U.S. population, but uses 40% of all prescription drugs. So this is on prescription drugs. I don't know how many people, I put links so that you guys can see the resources that I've got this from. I don't know how many drugs the average person takes. Here's the next bullet. More than half of us now regularly take a prescription medication. 4 on average, according to a new nationally representative consumer report. Many in the group also take over-the-counter drugs as well as vitamins and other dietary supplements. And if you want to look more into what children are taking, I put a link there as well. And my concern is, this is my concern about all of these drugs and the weight, and we'll talk about more about the weight. But my concern is, can you have a full year of these medications ready? Can you have a full year of these prescriptions ready? I have family members who can only refill once their medication or medications are gone or almost out. And the refill is only for a month at a time. They are not allowed to have a full year supply. And this being the case, how can one wean off of medications to be more temporally prepared? I don't have the answer for this, but it's a question that I have thought about a lot. It's a lot on my mind. You're taking heart palpitation medication, or if you're taking insulin, or if you're just taking metformin, or just whatever drugs, prednisone or whatever. Can you have a year of that? And if you're not, how can you survive a whole year without it? So my question to you, if you're on those, how can you wean off of those medications to be more temperately prepared? More than 1/3 of adults, here's where we talk about weight, more than 1/3 of adults in the United States are obese. 36.5% of those adults are obese, and then another 32.5% of Americans, adults, are overweight. This is more than 2/3 of adults in America that are overweight or obese. I bring this up because I just a week and a half ago, I had a friend who had COVID. He got it 2 weeks later. He's gone. He is overweight, had hypertension, and I don't know if he was type 2 diabetic, but here's the thing. all of the cases that we have found, the most of these COVID cases, the underlying result has been because of obesity, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, and then blood clots. And this is huge. It just boggles my mind. I know this sounds really sad, but this is raising awareness of how we can be temporally prepared. If you do fall in one of these ranges, what can you do to overcome and combat these things? Another thing about being obese or overweight that I want to talk about that's a little bit on the plus side would be that it's an amazing source of food storage. And there's a doctor, and I put him in the link. I put him on the paper so you can look at it. So if you are falling in this range, Dr. Jason Fung talks about how we can access our food storage on our body. And I put a couple of links on there that he talks about how we can access it and how we can overcome diabetes. So if you do have hypertension, diabetes, or you're overweight, I think he would be such a great doctor to listen to, and then maybe talk to your doctor about how you can overcome these and wean yourself off of insulin, metformin, things like that, because those things can be reversed. It's proven. There is just to talk about the food storage real quickly, it's interesting on your body weight and things. A pound of fat is 3,500 calories, and an average person burns about 1,300 to 1,800 calories in a day. And so if you're 30 pounds overweight, then you can survive without food for about 60 days, as long as you have water. So I'm not saying that you should do this, but it's been done before, and it's happened in prisoners of war and things like that. They survived and they came out. Great Depression, they survived and they came out. There is an amazing story of a Scottish man. He fasted for 382 days. He lived off of tea, coffee, soda, water, vitamins, and he lived at his home. And he visited the hospital where he lived in Scotland for medical evaluation, and his starting weight was 465 or 456 pounds, but when he stopped fasting, he was 180 pounds. So it's just something to think about, that you won't die if you don't have enough. Just want to put it out there, you won't die. So even if you don't have enough, so that's the end of the weight thing. I know that's a little bit weird and a little bit maybe uncomfortable, but it's real. It's right there. It's in our face in society now. So next bullet is, even if you don't have enough food storage in your basement or wherever you keep your food storage, maybe you might have enough for just one small meal a day, and then the rest of your calories, of course, can come from your body storage. And as for children, I think it's so crucial to make sure they get enough so they can grow up properly during that time. Their brains, their bodies, their bones, they need it. I'd gladly give all of my food over to my children before me. A thought that comes to my mind as well is with the law of consecration. If we do have a food addiction that we can't overcome, I don't know how that works out with the law of consecration. I don't have an answer to that. I don't know. I just know that when we have all the stuff we have, and we're supposed to consecrate it to the Lord eventually, like in the New Jerusalem, right? I'm sure that we can't be hoarding food. So that might be something we need to overcome, and maybe pray to Heavenly Father about and try to see what we can do to overcome. I do know in some countries it's impossible to have food storage, even illegal to have food storage. So with that, well, I would like to learn this anyway, but maybe those people who can't have food storage can learn how to survive, like the indigenous cultures, like the Inuit, or the Hadza, or even the Native Americans. I know in Texas, there's a Native American group that goes and takes Westerners or whoever who wants to learn how to hunt and how to live off of the land. So maybe you won't cross Texas out, Micah, and you can learn how to hunt like a Native American down there. So, yeah, I would love to learn how to hunt without a gun and even understand the plants that can be eaten and which ones cannot. And there's a time and a place for everything. That is not where I am right now in life. But we do have food storage. But maybe one day. Another temporal preparedness awareness thing I think is important is that since COVID, substance abuse, child trafficking, domestic violence, depression, and weight have all gone up. And what does this have to do with being temporally prepared? When you gain weight, you get depressed. When you're depressed and things are not going the way you want to, there could be domestic violence. If you're not making the money you're supposed to be, I don't know what people would do with child trafficking. These are just things that go on in my mind. And this would be someone who's very much deviating from the rod, the iron rod. But these are the things that I think about that I'm like, I don't know if anyone else knows about the Operation Underground Railroad with Tim Ballard, but these are the things I have learned about, that these kind of things spiral and make people who they are if they veer off the iron rod, even if they were good people at first. Once you deviate and not repent, you can go far into that abyss of wickedness. And so these are just things to think about for yourself or for other people, being aware of those things. And we can't become a Zion people when this is the crisis that we're in. We're still in debt. We're, getting depressed. We're feeding our addictions, our temporal addictions, and not keeping our eyes single to the Lord. I felt in conference, I felt a little bit reprimanded. Not that, well, I feel like I've been doing a good job, but I felt like as a church, as a whole, we were reprimanded when he was calling us lazy scripture studiers. and when he was saying that, I think I'm paraphrasing exactly what he said, but when he said that, what hit me the most was we're not prepared for Zion yet. We're not prepared for the New Jerusalem. We have to become one. Enough of us have to become one. So that was a huge slap in the face, because I was like, I think I was getting my hopes up too much. I was kind of like, oh, because like, I forget who said it. Christ is among us. He said it 3 times in his talk. And I'm like, where is he? I want to see him. I've like felt like, is he literally there? But I don't know. He could have been there. I don't know. But I just felt very much that we are not temporally prepared yet. We are not self-reliant yet. We are not spiritually prepared yet as a whole. Enough of us as a whole. And these are the things that I think will help. I'm excited to hear Eric and Aaron as well, and to hear from Micah and Ashley as well. I don't know, is Ashley on tonight or no? Not tonight.
When by the time we get to the Q&A, she'll definitely be in here, and she's as some of you might already know, she's actually a pharmacist, and so some of those questions regarding getting pills for a year, I think she has probably some information that would be interesting for those in Canada, because if I'm not mistaken, there is differences between what a doctor would say and what a pharmacist would say. And so as far as getting your pills all at once. And so I'd have to confirm with her, but so there's some things I'd be interested to hear from her, because if I remember correctly, she did say that if you wanted all your doses at once, they can dish them out. The reason why people don't is because they're on a insurance plan or a medical plan, and it's not covered if you do it all at once. and so they'll not do it all at once because it costs them money. But I think that if you talk to your pharmacist, depending on the pills that you have and how many refills you have, you can actually get them all at once. You just have to pay more. So, but I could have her talk about that, because that is on a lot of people's minds. Like, how am I going to get enough insulin? How am I going to get enough of this? And so maybe I could have Ashley pop on and give the more pharmaceutical side of things to help with that. So.
Right. Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah. And I'm reading some of these comments here just really fast. And I'm sorry if I offended you guys on the weight issue. I know some of you are like, enough on the weight. It's just part of life. I don't know what else to say. I haven't been skinny my whole life. I've worked really hard. But I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. I think, I've just witnessed a lot in my life with people with certain things, and being temporally prepared, having your health there. We do have the word of wisdom. It's not a commandment except for the no's, right? All the don'ts are in the temple questions, but it says the last verse, it talks about the destroying angel will pass over you. And the numbers and COVID and heart disease, obesity, and all of that all add up right there together, of the people who have passed away. It's a serious thing. I don't think it's funny. I'm not shaming anybody. I really just want people to be able to live their life. So as long as they can, that's why we're here. To learn how to have faith as long as we can here, to be tried, tested, polished, proven, so that we can come back to Him. And if we can do it by overcoming any of the 7 deadly sins, and gluttony is one of them, then we can. I was gluttonous, okay? I had an eating disorder for many years in my life, but I was able to overcome it through Christ and through going through the addiction program in the church. So I'm not shaming anyone. It's a serious thing. And I just think that I hope that people understand that, and just, I don't know. I guess it's a humbling thing for me. It was humbling for me to go through all of that.
Yeah, the thing that we should definitely take from that, though, regardless of the weight issue, the thing we should take from that is that we should not undervalue the water. Like, a lot of people say that we need to get that food for a year, but they really neglect that water for a year. And so I would say that maybe we should get more focus on our water, because we definitely can survive with a little less calories than we think we can in our food storage, but we really need that water. And so that's really important. So we definitely need to make sure we get that water. So that's really important. And so anyway, the papers can be found on the family blog, the family website, as always. And, there's a lot of good questions here about medicine and things like that. When Ashley comes on, I will have her answer all those. She knows how long insulin lasts, and she knows all those things, and the insurance and things like that. But all of the references, so all of the things that Aaron is going to talk about, and all the things that Eric, Aaron, and Kaarina talked about will be in those papers. So if you want those references to go check it out for yourself, to decide for yourself, those are things that we have up there for free. So I don't know if I mentioned that at the beginning. So if you want to download that, because I don't know if everyone's going to read everything they have there, and they're definitely not mentioning the references. So you can go check those out there. So that seem fair?
Thanks for, yeah.
No.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Sorry. And a lot of people are also asking about things like shoes and things like that. I would classify, and making soap and items like that, I would classify that more as self-reliance, and we're going to go over that in the other fireside. And so that's why we're not talking about that here.
Cool. Cool. Sorry I offended so many people. I didn't realize I was going to offend so much. This is what I felt inspired to talk about being temporally prepared. So I prayed.
No, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for what you said and the references. So,
Yeah.
and that's all there. There's pages of stuff there that you can check out if you're interested in it or not. So, and that's all we're doing here, right? What worked for us, what didn't work for us, and it might be different for other people, right? So, Micah is really into top ramen, and there's a lot of people who really hate top ramen. So, hey, it doesn't work for you. It doesn't work for you, right? I'm not
Get
offended.
what works for you, right?
Yes, I'm not offended in the slightest if you think top ramen is the worst thing ever. There's a lot of bad stuff with it, but anyway,
you can survive.
yes. So there you go. So I mean, it might not work for you, and so, but I hope that people aren't mad at me when I suggest top ramen. So this is just what works for us. What doesn't work for us, it doesn't. If it doesn't work for you, hey, we'd love to hear your suggestions on what worked for you in the chat. So what worked for you, what didn't work for you, and that's what we're involved in. So that top ramen was banned by some people. Yes. So a lot of people hate it. So I get it. We all have different things that we like and don't like, and just do what works for you. But what we know what the commandment is, we got to have that year of food. We got to have that year of water, right? So
Yeah.
Thank you for your input and for the time it took you to do that, Kaarina. We love you.
Love you too.
All right. Say hi to your family, your husband, and your two youngins, right?
Yeah, and I'll be listening to Aaron and Eric after I put them to bed. Yeah.
All right. What are the two kids' names?
We've got Ariana.
Ariana.
And Miko.
Pretty
Ariana.
name.
Yeah.
And what was the other one?
Thank you. Miko, Mikko. It's Michael in Finnish. It's a great grandfather's name.
I don't know if I told you this or not, but we lived in Thunder Bay for 2 years, and Thunder Bay had like something crazy, like 30 or 40% Finnish population. And
Yep.
Oh, you knew that?
Yeah, my father loves telling me exactly where, and we've had a lot of Finnish parties down in Colorado, so I've gotten to meet a lot of Finns who are from that area as well.
Man,
yeah.
and they are a fun-loving people. Holy cow. Like, you think that Vikings had it all, but nah, the Finnish, they love their hot tubs, and they love their saunas, and
yes, we do. And I even have a sauna, so.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, well, the parents-in-law do, so we use it quite a bit. It's an infrared sauna, but that's all right.
Well, you're Finnish. You have to.
Yes, have to.
It was my neighbor was Finnish, and he was my age, and man, he was the most friendly, non-Christian person I've met my entire life. So a really cool group of people, the Finnish, and
yeah,
and none of them were shy. So if you were a shy Finnish, you were definitely the odd duck in the family. Very similar to Sicilians. So I could get along with them really well.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well,
yeah.
God bless you. God bless your family, and awesome names.
Guys. Oh, thank you so much. Yes. Yes, you have a wonderful night. God bless you too.
All right. Talk to you soon, Kaarina.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. So we have next. Thank you, Kaarina, for that. Finnish. Like I said, man, friendliest people I've ever met. Right up there with Polynesians and some Italians. I know it's probably racist to say that certain races are friendly, but they are. They were really friendly. I really enjoyed them. And I like the cultural stuff, man. I love the saunas and the hot tubs and things that were really important to them. I thought it was really cool. So anyway, we're going to go to Aaron, and I'm going to give him a call, and we're going to hand it over to him.
Hello, Aaron.
Hola, Aaron. Uh-oh. I can see you, Aaron, but I can't hear you. So I think you turned on your turned on your
I'm
video
pushing buttons. Yeah, I'm pushing buttons and I'm turning off microphone. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine.
All right, now we're ready to.
Yeah, you have to turn off the video because my internet's terrible. But there we go. Okay, so we could hear him. Okay, we got it set up. So Aaron, introduce yourself and go.
There we go. I have a face made for radio and a voice made for typing anyway, so no one wants to see me. My name's Eric. I live in northern Utah. I'm a painting contractor, so I'm self-employed. And I don't know, I'm kind of a boring person. I spent a few years in the United States Army. I was born and raised in California originally. I'm 47, almost 47 years old. So that's me. Otherwise, rather boring, everyday individual, I guess. My little mini lecture today is on food storage, and I'm not a professional speaker, so I hope things go smooth. And Micah, interrupt me if I'm rambling or if something else goes wrong.
Roger.
There's 3 reasons. Oh, did you want to say something?
Oh, I said Roger. Got it.
Got it. I think there are 3 reasons why church members don't have a 1-year food storage. Number 1, they don't see the need or understand the doctrine or commandment behind it. Number 2, the cost is too much. And number 3, even if they could afford it, where would they store it? But I believe the reality is once you understand the commandment, excuses number 2 and 3 are eliminated. The cost and where to store it. You'll hear people say, but 1 year of food is just daunting. Don't you realize what 3 weeks of groceries looks like when we unload the car? Well, so is considering 1 year of tithing all at once, all up front. Just pay your tithing out of this paycheck, and the Lord will bless your obedience and open up a way for you to pay the tithing next time also. And the same thing applies to food storage. Food storage and temporal salvation is a commandment that we can keep perfectly. Now, for what works, this is an interesting one because it dispels this idea of it being so daunting. Believe it or not, in a most basic, minimal food storage, your water will be the most expensive thing you store. And here's the breakdown for that. The bare minimum that is needed for an adult to survive 1 year would be 300 pounds of grains, such as rice and wheat. Right now at the home food storage centers operated by the church, those 300 pounds of grains would cost you $234. You'll also need 60 pounds of beans, whether they're pinto, black, or navy beans. The dry beans can get you protein. That current cost is $75. 10 pounds of honey or sugar, that's about $24. And 1 gallon of lard or Crisco or oil or other fats, that's about $19. So all in total, in order to survive for a year, your cost would be $352 for an adult. However, just like Kaarina just explained, water is usually about $1 a gallon, and it's mostly because of the container. And it doesn't matter if you buy gallons by the single or even a 250-gallon tank. Those will even be $250. It isn't until you get to about a 500-gallon water tank that the price starts coming down below $1 per gallon. Now, of course, if you get a 5,000-gallon tank, that's going to probably cost you $2,000. So there's obviously a price point at which it becomes less. So overall, the average cost throughout the whole U.S. of water coming out of your faucet right now is about $1.55 per 1,000 gallons. So that means 365 gallons, the amount you would need to have a gallon a day for a year, is about 60 cents. But to store it would be another $365. Now, the most basic food storage that I'm talking about is designed to keep you alive, not fat. Now, before you dismiss this basic, minimal, essential type foods, remember that there are currently tens of millions of people alive right now, and this is their main staple to survive. And this is while their jobs and their economy and their food availability and distribution is very normal where they live. Truly, millions of people live mostly on rice and beans as their main staple, and add some vegetables and spices to dress it up. If you ate this for an entire year, you would be really thin, very, very bored, and probably a bit malnutrition. You would be missing some essential vitamins and things like that. But the commandment is to get this in order to survive and stay alive, you and your family. And after we obtain this absolute minimum, then we can work on getting some more desirable foods. In general, preppers will tell you should store what you eat, but eat what you store. If your family cannot stand, for example, sardines, then it would be foolish for you to store 50 pounds of sardines. That mantra again is eat what you store what you eat. Now, if you could imagine yourself, once you get really settled in and realize there's no food coming to the grocery stores, there is no government relief coming, this is what I've got. If you can imagine yourself after 100 days of eating a food storage like this and nothing else, eventually you would think, these beans could use some garlic salt. And now we can start getting into some ideas of other things we would want to store. You have to consider what could be done to make this food storage a little more enjoyable, a little more normal. If you take the wheat, grind it into flour, and you have yeast and oil and salt and access to an oven, you can make bread. Well, now you can spread some of your honey or peanut butter on the bread. And if you've got that, how about we store some jams or jellies, something to change things and add some variety. Other considerations are things like spaghetti sauce, canned chicken, beef, pork, and fish, spices to change and to dress those things up, and canned soups. Another thing that works well to consider is to consider the emotional well-being of your children. If you're in a terrible disaster like this, can you imagine their birthday in a disaster situation? A birthday cake, complete with frosting, can really make a pretty terrible day a lot better. You'll need to add 2 fresh eggs and the oil that's listed on the back of the box, but you'll have time to plan for those and maybe barter with a neighbor. So we all know what we would hope to eat, but creating a plan or a menu for a year, that sounds crazy. But just consider 52 weeks. If you can amass 52 cans of spaghetti sauce, 52 cans of dry pasta, and 52 cans of some canned fruit, well, now once a week you can make spaghetti with a side of canned fruit. But you can make that meal once a week. My family eats spaghetti once a week at home anyway, so that wouldn't be too much different. Canned foods are the very best and longest proven storage method for a year's supply of food. However, those stored foods have to be stored somewhere that is consistently cool and dry, such as a basement. That would be an ideal situation. The USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture, declares that canned food can last indefinitely, that's another word for forever, everybody. The direct quote is, if cans are in good condition, such as no dents, swelling, or rust, and have been stored in a cool, clean, dry place, they are safe indefinitely. if you download this paper from Micah's notes, I have all the links for these quotes directly from the USDA.gov website, and you can look it up for yourself. But in order to make that successful, you need to select cans that you know are perfect when you buy them. Don't buy dented cans. Now, I'm sure there are some people that are recoiling with the idea of really old food. So if you're hesitant about some expired canned food, expired, I'm putting in little air quotes, you can make this a teaching event and check it out for yourself. So say you're going through the back of your food storage or your pantry and you find something that says expires 2015, something 6+ years old. Well, take it outside. You might even want to set up a camera and video this and send it to your friends. But take it outside and examine that can very carefully. Has it been stored someplace with a consistent dry temperature or low, reasonable temperature? Are there any dents? Is there any failed seams in the can? Is there any bulges or rust? If not, then while you're outside, open up the can. You will be able to tell absolutely instantly. When it comes to spoiled food that's in a can, there is no, maybe it's okay. Look, the food is either disgusting, festering, nasty, stinky, and gut-wrenching because it hasn't been preserved or refrigerated for 5 or 10 years, or it's perfectly fine. So this has been a little subject in years past at BYU, and they have asked volunteers who have found 30-plus-year-old food storage in their basements, and instead of throwing it away, they asked, could you donate it to the university, and we're going to check it out. I remember my own parents had some Sam Andy brand stuff that was packaged in 1973. I think we wound up throwing that away, but I also wonder if some of this same stuff ended up at BYU. So they took 30-year-old canned food. It had to be at least 30 years old for them to accept it. And they had to have come from a storage environment that was reasonable, not in a garage that's baking hot or next to a furnace, in a reasonable, dry, controlled environment. And they opened it up and did laboratory tests. It looked fine. It smelled fine. The nutritional content was slightly diminished, and they were talking about 3 and 4%, but safe for human consumption. They had 58 people volunteer to be taste testers and to grade the 30-plus-year-old food. And some of the highlights from this, they said the wheat kernels had hardly declined at all in 30 years. They were ground and made into a great loaf of bread. It was fine. 30-year-old apple slices seemed so normal that people continued to go back to that table to nibble on them more. White rice, pinto beans, dry macaroni, rolled oats, and potato flakes, all by these 58 volunteers taste testing them, they were all deemed acceptable at 30 years of age by these people. And powdered milk, they deemed that acceptable after 20 years. By the way, they did a little bit of a blind study on this because, you can kind of, you're on edge about to bite into something 30 years old, not knowing if you're going to get really sick or not. So they also had the taste testers judge brand new canned food of the same variety that was less than 6 months old. And they couldn't tell the difference. They had the same number of people say, it's not really my favorite thing, but I would be able to tolerate it if it was all I had. In other words, it's the can that people don't like, not the food in canned food. It's the can that people dislike the idea of. There's also an article inside this paper, if you go to it, about a ship called the Bertland Steamboat. It sank in the Missouri River in 1865, not 1965, in 1865. And when they found it and dredged it up, they found peaches, oysters, plum tomatoes, honey, and mixed vegetables that had been canned. And they decided to test it. It wasn't done by teenage daredevils. They shipped the food to scientists at the National Food Processors Association. And these scientists and chemists checked out all of the caloric properties, the taste, the texture, all of the vitamins and minerals. And they said, quote, "There is no trace of microbial growth, and the food was determined to be still safe to eat." Now, we're mostly talking about canned foods, but for a moment, I'll talk about freezer foods. Freezer is another place to have good storage, but you probably should not rely on constant refrigeration operating because of the electricity. But the USDA also has declared that whether something is commercially packaged or home wrapped, frozen foods absolutely never expire and never spoil. Microbials and bacteria cannot grow on frozen food. Now, the taste may be a bit off because any kind of refrigeration is a drying, dehumidifying process. So some natural waters is probably that's where you get the ice crystals from when things get freezer burned. So you might want to take that hamburger that's 15 years old. You might not want to make it into burger patties, but it should be fine for something like tacos. Another thing that works fantastic is honey. Honey absolutely never spoils except by contamination. Honey has been found in Egyptian catacombs in glass jars, and they determined it to be at least 5,500 years old, and it was perfectly safe to eat. It literally never spoils. Your oils. Most oils can last 10 years if they are stored right. They have to be in a cool, dry, dark place away from oxygen, especially if, you never want to take the lid off and then store it. It's light that ruins oil and oxygen. So if you're going to buy oils to store, you should get them in dark glass bottles or get a cardboard box that you completely close so that they can stay nice and dark. All oils are not created the same. Walnut and sesame oils will spoil the soonest. Olive oil lasts the very longest. Now, there's some more that you should want to research about rancid oils. I'm not a doctor, so don't sue me. But the USDA declares that rancid oils will not make you sick, but it does taste absolutely awful. If you can't tell if oil has gone bad by the smell, they suggest you pour a tablespoon into a saucepan and heat it on the stove. Rancid oil will give a foul odor right away when heated. There are some other things that you need to consider in your temporal salvation that will avoid some serious agony if and when the time comes to use it. Toothpaste and toothbrushes. You might like to replace your toothbrush very often, but you could make it do for 3 months. So if you buy one of those 4-packs and put it away, you're set for a year. Another thing is hard candies. Those last forever. Only moist air ruins them. So for us, we take all of our hard candies from restaurants and Halloween, put them in a 1-gallon Ziploc bag, close it, and put it in our food storage. Now, some might think that hard candies is silly, but the church history says that President Brigham Young always had a pocket full of peppermints, and he would share those with people who needed some encouragement along the way to the Salt Lake Valley. Another thing you might want to consider putting into your storage is some Ambisol for those toothaches after eating too much candy. If you were to chip a tooth or develop a painful cavity, what would you do? Now, as a side note, what would you do on those things? after this happens in every country that winds up collapsing economically or socially, after people realize, okay, we're on our own, help isn't coming, it's not going to be tomorrow, we just have to hunker down and make it do. Once that is realized, a barter economy will develop right away. A dentist might be willing to trade some of his dental work for some carpentry or for some sewing work or things like that. Another thing it's important to put in your food preps would be an old school manual crank can opener. You may not have electricity to open cans every single day, and your fancy countertop electric one might also break. Infant formula. Even if you don't have babies at home, this would be a delightful thing to share or barter with or trade with somebody who's in desperate need in a terrible situation. Powdered infant formula usually has one of those best before dates several years after purchase.
The ones that we bought didn't even have one.
Yeah. So, sometimes they're embossed on the can, and it's like 4 years out.
Yes.
Because it's powdered milk that's emulsified with extra vitamins and things, and it's going to last a long, long time. And that may be something in a very short supply when it's really needed. Feminine hygiene products. Those might be an important thing to store too. And also some soaps and laundry detergent and dishes in case you have machines or if you have to wash things by hand. Disinfectants. If you are fortunate to still have running water, you might want to clean a toilet and other things with water. How about fluids with electrolytes, such as Pedialyte brand, in case a baby or an adult develops diarrhea that they just can't shake? Basic medical supplies, such as Band-Aids and tweezers, etc. Bleach or chlorine tablets for purifying some water that may not be as clean as you'd like it to be. As a side note, never ever use color-safe bleach for cleaning water. That's a different product. You're going to introduce chemicals to your body that you don't want. Only use products that clearly state on the label that it can be used to purify drinking water. And another thing that is kind of an odd device at first, but it can be a miracle saver, is a walker. You know, like the old guys use in the movie Up. It folds up and you can put the tennis balls on the bottom. You can find this for $20 at any garage sale. You can fold it up, throw it in the attic, use it for any lower body injury, whether someone hurts a tailbone or a hip or all the way down to a broken toe. This can be a real mobility saver for people getting out of bed or bathing if they've been injured and have to stay at home or have to get moving. Okay, now for my list of things that does not work. The worst place for your food storage or other temporal needs is in your bank account. You'll hear people say, well, I have some emergency money, and I'll buy that after or if things get really rough. Well, you're going to be in line with 330 million other people trying to do that. Another reason why you don't want to have that all in the bank, Kaarina said this in her opening thing about, she had a similar situation where she was stranded without food for a lot of days. In 1993, I learned that the United States ATM network, I don't know if it was Star or Cirrus or whoever the entire United States was using back then, but it was one network. And in April of 1993, I was getting out of my basic training in Fort Knox, Kentucky. I'd been there for 6 months, and I think I bought Burger King twice over Christmas, and I got about 10 haircuts. So I had a lot of money saved up in the bank. I left base and got to Louisville, Kentucky, and an ice storm hit some bank in Boston, Massachusetts. Everything went down. ATM and debit cards all over the United States of America were dead for a week. I had thousands of dollars in the bank, and I couldn't get anything. And just try to write a check out of state, even in 1993, let alone today. I was totally, absolutely stranded. I wound up getting an emergency loan from the Army Relief Organization with a payment plan to redo it. But at that point, I realized, wow, banks are not quite as reliable and convenient as we like them to be. The next worst place to store your food is at the grocery store. Again, you might even have the cash in reserve just in case. But if you talk to anybody who's ever worked at a grocery store, especially one who's managed it, you will learn that the average grocery store replenishes everything under their roof every 3 days. Things like bread and milk and eggs, they usually get 2 trucks of those a day. Those last about 10 hours in the building before they're sold. Now, odd things like laundry soap or soy sauce or corn syrup, those might be on the shelf about a week, but the average item is there about 3 days, and that's under normal conditions. Now, if you add a natural or a man-made disaster, about a year ago, grocery stores are going to be wiped out within hours. And like I said before, when talking about canned food, the next worst place is in your garage or furnace room. The fluctuating temperature changes, that it quickly ruins the stability of the canned food. It will rot inside the can if the temperature is constantly changed. Some foods to not bother storing. One of the worst foods to store would be brown rice. You would think all rice must be good, but when brown rice is polished, they grind it around and they break off that piece, and that's how we get white rice. White rice will last forever if it's canned and put away right, but brown rice will spoil rotten within 6 months, even if it's stored in a nice environment. So don't store brown rice. Peanut butter is another fun thing because it has protein in it, and that's usually a difficult thing to store, but peanut butter usually only lasts 1 or 2 years. And oddly enough, the more natural the peanut butter is, the faster it spoils. So if it's all natural peanut butter, it might only last 6 or 7 months in a brand new sealed container. Canned foods is the best long-term solution, but some cans are better than others. The ones with those easy open pull top lids like you have on some soups, those won't last for 30 years. They're easily compromised when you stack them up or move them or bump them. The edges of the lid, which allows it to be an easy opening tear-off lid, that little tiny point is just paper thin. So traditional cans are better if you're going to do a long-term storage. But I don't have a basement or an extra room for all of this. You can find space for food storage under a bed. You can put that directly on the floor or as even part of the bed. And here's how you can do that. The box of 6 cans that you get from the church's home storage center, those boxes are 19 inches by 12.5 and 8 inches tall. The grains needed and the beans needed, those will fit in 14 boxes total per person. A twin bed is 38 inches by 75 inches long. 12 of those boxes, arranged 3 boxes wide and 4 boxes long, will be 1 inch longer than the mattress, but narrower. And most bed frames are 1 inch longer anyway. That means 12 of your 14 boxes can be put under a twin bed, or you can put it instead of the box spring. Box spring is something old people say now. They now call those bed foundations. They call them that because we no longer put springs inside that part. It's now a solid, rigid box under the mattress. So you could replace this useless box with some food storage. A queen bed is 60 inches by 80 inches. So that would fit 3 boxes by 6 boxes. So you could put 18 boxes of food storage under a queen bed. It's difficult, and it may take some imagination if you're in an apartment or someplace to try to find a place for food storage. But if you make obedience to this commandment a priority, you'll find some space. This might anger some people, but as an example, no one is commanded to have a closet that's full of Christmas ornaments. That'll ruffle some feathers, right?
Wait, are you sure? Are you sure that's not in there somewhere?
Exactly.
DNC
right,
152. Isn't it in Doctrine and Covenants chapter 152?
I don't know that our church goes that high on our book, Mike.
Darn. Okay, sorry. Keep going.
All right, I'm over halfway done. I'm going to get into food clothing, but I got to get my voice modulator, which is code 0, going here. Now, a year's supply of clothing. We're also commanded to ensure we have a year's supply of clothing, and this ought to be the easiest category that people living in 2021 in North America could possibly do. Most of our clothing lasts much longer than a year. The only reason we get rid of it is because we're bored of it, or like Kaarina was saying, we don't fit in it anymore. But most of the stuff in your closet's going to last a year anyway, so I don't know if there's anything you need to go out and buy special for this, but you should consider some large hats for sun or rain exposure, some of those disposable raincoats, and even huge garbage bags. You can cut a hole through your head and your arms. It's not a fashion show, but it would work, and it would change warm weather gear into warm and rainy weather gear. One thing that people really overlook and can be very helpful would be suspenders and belts. Yeah, those are not great items for a fashion show, but you might lose significant weight while on this food storage after months. Or you might get clothing from another person. Hand-me-downs used to be a way of life, but today we cringe at those. But if you have some suspenders or some belts, you could make ill-fitting clothing at least work so you can walk around. Most of our shoes and boots would easily last a year also, but you might want some extra sets of shoelaces. Pick some of those up next time you're at the grocery store and put those away with a first aid kit. There's nothing worse than trying to walk around and your shoe keeps falling off. On to a year's supply of fuel. I'm sure people are wondering, is he crazy? We use hundreds of gallons of fuel every year. The fire department will cite us if we store that much in the garage. We'd be called domestic terrorists if it ever caught fire. A year's supply of fuel does not mean 6 gallons of gasoline per day for your usual commute or for your vacation. If times are this bad, you're not going to be driving downtown to the office 5 days a week. You're going to be staying at home. The 4 things you need fuel for is cooking food, heating at least one room during winter, some for a vehicle to move you and your family to a safer place, not back and forth daily, but one time if you absolutely have to leave town, permanently. And number 4, fuel to operate water pumps or other agricultural machinery such as tractors to plant and harvest food. Most of us are not farmers and ranchers, so this one doesn't apply at all. But something in there you need to consider is, are you able to heat, or if you're in Arizona, Texas, or Southern California, or the Deep South, are you able to cool at least one room independently of the power company and all of the utilities? Most of our furnaces depend on electricity and natural gas or propane. What if one of those is gone? A furnace absolutely requires both of those in order to operate. How would you stay warm? You can't wear a jacket for 4 and 5 months. So consider a way to heat a room if you were in a desperate situation. Another thing we love in our modern age is our smart homes. Is your brand new techie thermostat connected to Siri or Alexa? Great, because now you depend on the gas company, the electric company, and the internet for your heat to operate. Now that might not be very smart in a grid down situation. So those are a lot of fun to have, but instead of throwing it in the garbage can, maybe you should keep your old basic traditional thermostat in with your emergency stuff in case you need to put it back on and have a single button to make it work. So there's our food, our water, our clothing, and our fuel. But I would like to add a category. Food, clothing, and fuel, that's been the mantra for generations. But I'd like to add information. And what I mean by that is analog books. Our previous generations didn't have to store this kind of thing because everything they had was printed, hard copy information. But today we have everything digitally stored, where we can't really access it unless we have charged batteries, internet system, etc. What would you do in this cancel culture that's going on if the App Store or Google Play or whatever, what if they decided to delete LDS Tools and the Gospel Library off every one of your devices tomorrow? That would it'd make the news, sure, but what would you do if you didn't have a ward directory or whatever, or your scriptures? So perhaps you should make sure you have an analog printed hard copy book on medical stuff such as wound care, because right now everyone goes to Google and types in WebMD for all of their symptoms. What about your contact lists, addresses of people? I don't know my own mother's phone number. I press number 3 and send, and it just goes. So we need to have that important information as a hard copy. So medical books, things on first aid, printed local maps. How about lists of local poisonous or edible berries? And always printed children's books. That can help soothe and distract them in a really terrible situation. Now, speaking of telephones, 20 years ago, the mantra everyone was told that after a major disaster, stay off the telephone, so that 911 and all the police and everybody, they need those telephone lines to communicate. So stay off the phones after a big disaster. This is only partially true now. A cellular repeating tower, ones that the ugly ones they try to dress up with pine cones and stuff along the freeway, those cellular towers, they can handle thousands of text messages per second, and they do all the time. So after a major disaster, if you still have a working cell phone, don't call family to see if they're okay and to say that you're okay, but you should text them and remind others to only reply by text in the immediate future until things are back to 100%. Now, there's some general advice. I'll tell you how my family handles our food storage, how we do it. Food storage is the biggest concern just because of the volume. So I'll cover the other stuff first. Our clothing, our fuel, and our information storage is just what you might expect. We have plenty of clothing, including our snow gear, because we live in northern. We keep on hand our hats and gloves and belts and suspenders and extra shoelaces, and to make sure that everything else will last at least a year. As for fuel, we have large propane tanks for heaters and cooking appliances. Unlike gasoline or diesel, propane is another thing that lasts forever in those bottles. And then for our information, I've always loved printed media because I'm old school on that, so I like books and posters. So for our food storage, we have water in several 500-gallon tanks outside our house. We found some that were about 5 feet wide and about 5 feet tall, maybe a little taller, so they're not really ugly and can't see them over the fence. Now, this might surprise you, but the water that you drank today is at least 6,000 years old. That's the most conservative estimate, doctrinally. Water never spoils. Just like honey, it can only become contaminated. Stored water does not really have to be drained and refilled annually. All that really does is make sure you can inspect it if you want. If the water is in an approved water storage container, which is dark and keeps the mildews from ever growing, if you got it out of your tap and it's chlorinated to begin with, it will last forever. Now, if you've ever taken water out of a storage tank and tasted it, it's kind of gross. Experts would call that tasting flat. You can solve this instantly if you pour the water back and forth between two clean jugs. All you have to do is briskly pour it back to oxygenate it, and then it tastes just fine. And if you're in any doubt, strain it through some clean cloth and boil it for 10 minutes, or you can get out your bleach and add a couple drops to that. My family's fortunate. We have a large room in our basement that's just dedicated for food storage, for temporal salvation, soaps, first aid stuff, paper goods. So considering the possibility of earthquakes and also the sheer weight of our food storage, we started with some really strong steel shelves. We loaded these shelves with the heaviest stuff at the bottom and the lightest stuff at the top. Now, we don't store anything on the floor itself, because if there's a burst pipe or a small flood, we would hate for cardboard boxes to wick and soak up water and rust cans. So nothing's actually on the floor. So on the bottom shelf, which is about 4 inches above our floor, that's where we have all of our long-term wheat, rice, and beans. It also has our honey and olive oil that's in dark bottles and inside cardboard boxes to keep it dark even if the light's on in there. This shelf is too low to really easily see or access. It's from your knees down. So out of sight, out of mind. And that's exactly what we want it to be, because that's not stuff we really usually rotate. We just go through it once a year to verify things. So this row alone fulfills our minimum, what we call our apocalypse or starvation food. That's our 1 year absolute bare minimum stuff. And above this, we have the foods that we're more accustomed to. From the 2 foot up shelf is our heavy canned goods. At the very lowest is things that are acidic, such as tomatoes and other fruits, in case they ever bulge or leak. And there's also our canned meats and tuna fish and every assortment of canned goods you can imagine. From about 4 feet up, that shelf is all of our pastas and other foods that they take up volume, but they aren't too heavy. The oatmeal that we want to eat in the next couple years, that fits on there along with spaghetti, egg noodles, elbow macaroni. The top shelf is 6 feet up, and up there we keep toilet paper and the other things that I wouldn't mind hitting me on the head if there was an earthquake and I was in the room. But paper towels, some of the lightweight first aid stuff, feminine hygiene products, diapers for grandbabies, etc. Now, in deciding to buy which foods to buy, you can go online. There's hundreds of prepper YouTube channels and websites that you can download all kinds of Microsoft Excel things, and you can calculate everything based on necessary calories and all of the different nutrients and stuff. That can get really complicated and technical. We didn't do that. We simply created a basic meal that we can make with stored food, and we plan to eat that as our main meal once a week for all 52 weeks. So we're set up for tuna casserole, spaghetti with meat, chicken salad sandwiches, a chili or a stew, beef stroganoff, shepherd's pie, and number 7 is soups. more variety is created because inside of each of those categories, we have different spices, different sauces for all of these different dishes. Breakfast food is the most boring thing. That's oatmeal. But you can add variety to that with your honey, maple syrup, and a whole bunch of different dehydrated or fresh canned, not fresh, but canned fruits. We recently added to another shelf some dehydrated egg powder, dehydrated onions, bell peppers. They make dehydrated cheese now, and even dehydrated spinach. Now, with those, we can make some yummy omelets. So that's what we'd like to look forward to there. Now, water itself can also be very boring to drink. So we have a kind of ridiculous amount of the Walmart brand generic Crystal Light. I think they're like $2.30 a piece. And you can make 4 gallons of flavored different stuff. So flavors like orange early rise, strawberry lemonade, fruit punch, that can be a lot better than boring water. Another thing that has worked well for us when stacking things up, we keep the cardboard trays between layers of cans so that they can have a broad base for stacking and to also anticipate some earthquakes. And besides that, it keeps the edges of your cans from ever getting dented. And if we ever had to move our food storage in an emergency to go to another safer place long term, I would much rather have to move a couple hundred cardboard trays full of food than thousands of individual cans. I don't think I have 1,000 cans, but I'm just being facetious there. Now, speaking of cardboard, for those of you in a hot or humid climate, it can be kind of maddening when you get cockroaches or other little bugs in a totally sealed room. People get really frustrated. Even in a brand new house, bugs somehow arrive. Well, without exception, every food packager and distribution warehouse for grocery stores, they have bugs. And bugs absolutely love to lay eggs in corrugated cardboard. It is the most ideal environment for them to lay eggs. So to solve this, but still be able to use your cardboard, you check your cardboard trays to make sure that there's no metal staples. Most of these are glued. And you can put one or as many will fit in your microwave and put it on microwave and just nuke them for 20 seconds. You don't need to cook it longer than 20 seconds because the eggs can't be deader, but you could end up damaging your microwave if you run it too long without something to absorb the energy. So then you can take those same cardboard trays after the eggs are absolutely dead and use them in your food storage without them hatching and grossing you out.
I believe Marlene from Building Zion used totes. So she actually took it. She took it out of the cardboard boxes, cleaned it, and then stuck them in totes that she labeled month 1, month 2, month 3. So if you have the money, using totes also might work to help you carry these things versus having to carry them one at a time, like you were saying.
Right. Yeah. Both to store and to move them. You can easily transfer them to a pickup truck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or something like that to get them out. My final thoughts for people to consider. I would be careful who you discuss and especially who you show your food storage and other temporal preparations to. Think about these words and tell me if they sound familiar. Sadly, some who you thought were your friends will betray you, and some things will simply seem unfair. That was President Nelson, our prophet, in October 2020 conference during his address that was urging us to prepare and to never stop preparing places of safety and security. We cannot revoke knowledge. If and when we are going to rely on our temporal preparations, life is going to be even more difficult if 900 people in your city know that you have it and where it is. Don't underestimate what desperate even starving people will do for food. I've seen it. It's a course of my work, and also while I was in the military, I went to nations that had employment rates that were worse than the U.S. during the Great Depression. They had terrible food storages, terrible malnutrition. It was long-term problem, and the associated crime that is created because of that is terrifying, and that still happens in 2021. So when you're discussing food storage with others, have a prayer in your heart and carefully listen for the promptings of the Holy Ghost, and you can discern if who you're talking to they're going to fit into probably one of three categories. One, they're a fellow saint, whether they're a member of the church or other good Christian. They're a fellow saint who's also awake to this incredible need. Or, number two, they're a person who is weak and just doesn't understand the need for food storage, and you can teach them and edify and strengthen them. And number three is someone who is rebellious about food storage. These are the rebellious people those are the ones that you're going to have to watch out, who could betray you, and it can really come back to bite you. So here I'll give a shameless plug for Micah's lecture on weakness versus rebellion. You can go to that video and see the great difference between those. I sent a whole bunch of good quotes that hopefully Micah and Ashley will put up in the notes, of all kinds of quotes about temporal salvation from our church leaders over the last, since 1875. But two quotes I'd like to end with. One is from President Kimball, and as I read this, ask yourself, is he giving this warning to the world in general, or is he talking to the church members? Here's that quote. There will be no general warning to the membership of the church that things will shortly be falling apart. We have been commanded to follow the signs of the times, and that is all the warning we need or will be given. But the membership is asleep. Like the 10 virgins, we have been commanded to watch and prepare, but like the people in the days of Noah, many members have become lulled into a sense of security. That sense of security, that's the end of that quote. That sense of security is happening right now. Our friends and neighbors are saying, but the stock market is an all-time high right now on April 18th, 2021. Never been as great as it's been. Recovery is just around the corner. This summer is going to be amazing. And other people will say, well, if things get that bad, we'll just get another stimulus check anyway. Now, as for the last stimulus check, not only am I completely, fully employed and didn't need any free government money, I also spent $0 of it on food storage. You'll hear people who say that too. And you'll also, and most likely, going to hear the people who say, you sound crazy. Every time there's a major disaster, sure, it's awful for a few days or maybe a couple of weeks, but the government always arrives and helps. President Ezra Taft Benson, in the October 1980 General Conference, said this: "We bask in our comfortable complacency and rationalize that the ravages of war, economic disaster, famine, and earthquake cannot happen here. Those who believe this are either not acquainted with the revelations of the Lord, or they do not believe them. Those who smugly think these calamities will not happen, that they somehow will be set aside because of the righteousness of the saints, are deceived and will rue the day they harbored such a delusion. The Lord has warned and forewarned us against a day of great tribulation and given us counsel through his servants on how we can be prepared for these difficult times. Have we heeded this counsel? Plan to build up your food supply just as you would a savings account. We urge you to do this prayerfully and do it now." President Benson said that in the October General Conference of 1980. That was said almost 41 years ago. if anything, we are certainly much closer to that day of great tribulation. And those are my thoughts in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. And I'm going to stick around or back to you.
Amen. Thank you, Aaron. So, yeah, thank you for that. Everything that he said and those quotes are already up on the family website. So they're already up there. You can click on it and download it and see all that stuff there. So, yep, it's already all up there.
Excellent.
Thank
you for letting me participate.
No, that was fantastic. Thank you. I really appreciate both of you so far. The time it took to put this together, a lot of really useful information in here. And I think this, in conjunction with the one that we're going to be doing in a couple weeks, the self-reliance, I think that you're eliminating a lot of people's excuses and making it easier for people. So thank you for that.
All right. Appreciate it. And I love your work. And thanks for keeping us awake, Micah and Ashley.
All right. Well, we love you too, Aaron. Thanks for the work. We'll talk to you soon. Well, there was a lot of information in there that we can be using. So I hope we use. Okay, so we got Eric, Smokehouse. I'm going to be giving him a call, and he'll be our last speaker today.
Hey, man.
Eric, how you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Oh, my gosh. I love the accent.
Well, I'm not supposed to have an accent because I'm from Utah originally.
Oh, so you've earned it.
I guess so.
Oh, my goodness. I wish I had an accent. I don't. That's awesome.
I've been trying to get you to North Carolina. Come on.
You know, we sent out, I said this at the beginning, we sent out pharmacy applications to every state. So everyone has refused us. Now we're down to 3. So every state didn't want us. So we got 3. So anyway, so I'll let Eric introduce himself. He's Smokehouse. Wait, Smokehouse, is that right? In the chat?
Yeah, I was actually on YouTube and I saw this little notification saying to keep yourself private and protected. And I had just built my smokehouse. And so I thought, what the heck? That's what I'll call myself. So,
all right.
Yeah, that's who I am.
All right. But, so we'll let him introduce himself and you can go.
Cool. Well, I appreciate being here. This is something that I love to do. I've been kind of chatting in the chat, and I'm a fan of some of the old school methods. I guess maybe I like doing things the hard way. But basically, little story to bring things about to where we are now. One Saturday night in early October 2015, I was at a meeting and I received a text from a friend who asked if everything was okay at my house. And I told him I wasn't home, but I'd check with Krista, my wife, and see what was going on. And at that point, I found out that a reckless driver was running, 50, 60 miles an hour down our bumpy dirt road and plowed into a pine tree across from our house. Well, that's just him being dumb, I guess. Well, when I got home, Krista met me in the living room, and she first words out of her mouth were, "We need to move." I ignored her statement and just walked into the bedroom to change my clothes, and she repeated it again, "We need to move." She went on to tell me that after the events of the evening, she felt there was more in store for our family and that we needed to start a new chapter. I didn't like hearing this because our home, it was a modest home, but it was paid for and we didn't have any needs. So I was comfortable. I was complacent. But when she said that, the Spirit whispered to me that she was right. And we started right then looking at houses. Around every corner, we felt a push to keep going. And now I see this as an inspired conversation between myself and a mortgage broker. But I found out that the property where we eventually built our home, and we've got a small homestead, was available. We built our house, and I still kept feeling this push. This time it was more along the need to become more self-reliant. At our old house, we raised hogs and carried them to a local processor. So once we got settled in the house, we started this again. And due to having a larger property, we were on 4 acres at our first house, and this one we're at now is right at 13. I've always wanted to be a cowboy, so I said, what the heck, I'm going to buy some cows, and I'm going to let them eat the grass so I don't have to cut it. So we began feeding out a steer, and then we raised a calf that was born to our cow, a cow that we bought. In a little while, we began selling steers by the quarter and the whole. We've been selling hogs by the half and the whole, and I was carrying them into the same processor that I've used for years. A short time later, I was feeling I just needed more to do. So I tried to buy an existing business because I wanted to expand my portfolio, get ready for retirement. And anyway, I went to the processor one day and found out that their company was for sale. So I worked up there with them for about a week, going through things and figuring out, if this is really something I wanted to do, was be in the slaughterhouse business. And I could see myself doing it. It's not for everybody, but there is definitely a need in our society. And then COVID hit, and that put the purchase plans on the slow track, derailed the sale altogether. So I decided to begin this work for myself at home. I built a cold storage room. I bought some saws and equipment and knives and stuff like that. And I determined that the new path I needed was not to make more money, but to become more self-reliant by learning new skills. So now on our homestead, we raise cattle, hogs, chickens, and sheep. We also have a garden, and we're learning how to can and preserve. We've recently planted pear, apple, and fig trees, along with grapevines and blueberries. The last couple months, I've started 737 plants from seeds in the kitchen. I've never done this before. And then I decided it was time to build a greenhouse, and I was able to use a bunch of repurposed lumber. My father-in-law redid his deck stairs, and so I took all the old boards and I built this greenhouse with it. I've also built a wood fire smokehouse for cold smoking hams, bacon, and jerky. And like I said before, that's why I named myself Smokehouse. I don't know everything about this stuff, though. I'm still learning. And this, to me, is the key. The more we learn, the more we become more like our Father in heaven. And this journey of becoming more self-reliant for me has brought so much peace and happiness to myself and my family as we work together and we serve each other. And I got to say, there's no better meal than one made with food raised entirely from your house, from the eggs, the bacon, all that kind of stuff. It's awesome to be able to provide for your family in that manner. So what have I found that works? Has been mentioned before, is pay off debt. This gives you the resources to do more with your dollar. There's a lot of different methods. I recommend, just figuring out what works for you. I won't even go into all that stuff, but I think that the church's classes, the employment and finances classes are excellent resource that we have at our fingertips that a lot of times we don't even realize is there. Going on to food, like I say, raising our own cattle, we do that for milk and meat. Our milk cow is actually an Angus cow, and we don't milk her real often because she's got a calf still. So that saves labor for me. It is a lot of work doing that. So be prepared if you think you want a milk cow. Then we've also got, like I say, the hogs and the chickens for the eggs. We did do meat chickens one year, and that wasn't any fun. So for me, I'm just gonna buy some chicken. Like I say, I chose to diversify my holdings, if you will, by buying some processing equipment, saws and grinder, and then also books and recipes. I think if we're in a power down type scenario, it's important to have things that are not digital, just like Aaron was saying. The other thing we do is we've got a garden. This year our garden's about a half an acre, and that is a lot of work. So I've tried to minimize that work by using weed fabric and different gardening methods, such as using straw and hay mulch and things like that to try to knock those weeds down. The other thing we do for food is at the big box stores. We buy large quantities, the 50-pound bags of sugar, flour, salt, potato flakes, yeast. I got a lot of my information from Micah's video. It was excellent. The protein powder, that was something I had never thought of, the vitamins, things of that nature. And then there's other things that you need to bear in mind, like baking soda and the yeast that you'll need for bread, things like that kind of go without realizing. I have chosen to store this in food grade 5-gallon buckets because they were quick and available. Lids are where I have found the hardest problem. I found that you either want to use a paint style lid or a screw top lid, because those cheap little ones from Lowe's or Tractor Supply, they just don't seal. So make sure that you're getting lids that will go the long haul. And I'm sure there's better ways out there. To be honest, we were didn't have much food storage to speak of for a long, long time. And prior to COVID, we decided it was time to kind of get on the stick with that type of stuff, and we started making it happen. So I put in the chat, I spent my stimulus money on food storage, because that's something that I wasn't planning for, so I got a chance to spend extra money. We've talked previously about fats. That's one thing I love about the slaughter process. You get all of the beautiful lard and beef fat that you can render down and make tallow. It is excellent. I mean, it's just, you can use it for so much. It's amazing the stuff that you can use the fat for. Now on to water. Because we've got animals, this is a very important thing. We buy extra bottled water at stores when we go. But I've also purchased pickle barrels. We've got a Mount Olive pickle factory that's near us, and so they've got big plastic pickle barrels. And I put these on our downspouts from our rain gutter, and realized that we have a lot of water coming off of our roof. And it was so much that I couldn't keep up with it all. So that's one thing that I've got later on. I'll mention in the less effective areas. But rainwater harvesting is a beautiful thing if you can do it. You can also use the large agricultural style tanks. I've got a few of them. Spare pumps and spare parts. And I've got little drill pumps that you can run on the end of your drill for filling a tank in a faster manner. Old style hand pump. I've got one of them that my intention is to install it in the pond so that we can, get water out of it real easy.
Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Something there interested me. So you said that you got the I don't even know what you call it, gray water from the roof, and you're storing it. Do you get the animals to it, or do you somehow move it to the animals?
Therein is my problem. My theory was that I could use forks on the back of my tractor and take it to the animals. But what I've ended up doing is using 5-gallon buckets and carrying it across the yard. And it's just not real easy for me. What I wish I had done differently was have one or two rain gutters that feed a system and have the system tied together with an overflow that allows it, once one barrel is full, it goes into the other barrel. That would have been the better way. However, I was so excited to get the water off the roof that I just threw these barrels up under there, and I didn't have my system well thought out. So
smaller barrels moving.
Right. That is correct. But I mean, a 1/4 inch of rain off of my shop filled up our water barrels.
Wow.
It was amazing. There is so much water that hits those roofs, at least in North Carolina. Arizona might be another story. But it's amazing. And I do know that in some areas it's illegal to harvest your rainwater. So be sure that you're, we believe in honoring, obeying, and sustaining the law, right?
Wow, that's interesting.
So
why would they I guess
bureaucracy, man.
Wow, they own God, huh? That's fantastic.
Right. Yep. But really, the easiest thing for the rainwater harvesting is for my pigs. I've got nipple drinkers. They go up and they bite these little nipples and get their water from there. So off of the barn, the rain gutters dump right into these pickle barrels that have the nipples on them. And so then the pigs can drink right there, and I don't have to move it. It doesn't work that way for all of them, but it's great when it does.
So the best system would be, if you could, is to build your barn somehow attached to your fencing so that you could keep your animals right on up to it, is what you're saying.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Thanks for that.
Much easier.
I'm taking mental notes here, so this is good. Thank you. Keep going.
All right. The next thing, see, I have a slight, what do you call it? Your beverage, what do you call it?
Brew?
Your voice modulator.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, your brew. I'm a Diet Pepsi man. And
oh, right. There's another one out there.
Right. Oh, yeah. So 2-liter bottles. They are amazing for we refill them with our tap water, which we're on a well, and we treat that water with a little bit of bleach. And actually, I say we, it's really Krista that does all that. And then we store those 2-liter bottles away. It saves from just throwing them away. So with that, try to keep extra bleach around for sanitizing, containers or treating the water, that type of thing. Fuel, I didn't realize till I started writing it down that I love fuel. I love engines. You and I talked a little bit about Jeeps previously. Anyway, we cook with propane. So I had a 500-gallon propane tank installed in the ground when we built our house. I wish I'd have gone with 1,000 just because I like to be, have a little more. But this 500-gallon tank, we use about 1/3 of it in a year's time. So we've got plenty of fuel in there. And that powers our cooking, as well as a set of gas logs that will heat the main area of the house. Then I've got some propane cylinders, the 100-pound propane cylinders from Lowe's or Home Depot. And they're a little pricey to buy, but once you've got them, like Aaron said, that propane lasts forever. And then the old grill cylinders, you can pick them up anywhere. Lowe's, garage sales, people give away grills, that type of thing. And I just when I get them, I fill them up and I just put them in my pile. There's also a cool contraption that I found where you can fill the 1-pound cylinders from a larger tank. You can find this little adapter on Amazon. It was like $6, and it allows you to refill those smaller bottles. I've also got a farm tank full of diesel fuel. A lot of people put off-road diesel because it's cheaper, but I've got a diesel truck, and so I keep on-road fuel in there. And I've got a 12-volt pump, so you can run it just like, just like pulling up to the gas pump. However, if you needed, you could put a hand pump on it or just a petcock drain. And I use that for my tractor as well most of the time, but occasionally I have put it in my truck. Then let's see. We have an RV, and keeping the fuel up in that. To me, a tank of fuel is, if you've got it, you've got it. Even if you're not going anywhere, you can use that fuel. So I try to keep the propane up and the engine fuel. Then gas cans. I don't know where I found them all, but I've got several. And I put the non-ethanol fuel in there and try to keep some Sta-Bil in there. And that we've got a fair bit of grass to cut, so we end up using it in the mower most of the time, but we've still got it there in the offhand that we need it for something else. For generators, for instance, I keep them full of fuel. This decreases the chances of condensation, and then once in a while you may want to drain that fuel out and put fresh in it. But here on the eastern North Carolina coast, we have the occasion of hurricanes that I think the longest I've been without power is about a week. So we use our generators fairly regularly, I'll say. About once a year we'll fire them up and have cause to rely on them. Then wood. Because of the smokehouse, I wanted to do the off-grid type thing because it's Eric's opinion that when things get bad, things are going to be bad. And we're not going to have, people aren't going to be out maintaining power lines and making sure that the natural gas is flowing to the house. So in my smokehouse, everybody's got these Traegers, and they're awesome. They do some amazing, it's exceptional food. But I wanted to be able to cook without the use of a smartphone. So I took an old wood-burning stove that I had and ran stovepipe over to a building and allowed that cool smoke to go in to flavor the meat and to cure it. And now there's a whole science behind it after you salt the meat. And so I won't go into all that now. But I've got to be able to store this wood and I've got to be able to rotate the wood so that it's not just junk. So that's where I need to improve, is building my wood storage facility to where it's up off the ground and out of the weather. So that's one of my improvements that I'm working on at the moment, coming up with some ideas for. So as far as what have I found to be less effective, that I mentioned the rainwater, have your setup designed before you implement it. There's a 1,000 different people out there that have done all kinds of things. Just be patient. I'm not a real patient individual. I wanted it now, so I made it happen, and it works. But
maybe that has something to do with the Pepsi.
It probably does, yeah.
Pepsi lovers have problems with patience.
So let's see. Then I should have. My gutter guy, I should have had him just do a couple of locations because I could redesign the whole system and make it better. One thing a few years ago, I have this on my less effective list, is I tried to, I had an old tractor trailer that I got on a trade. It was a bad deal, but I ended up with this road truck. And in 2007, I believe it was, maybe it was 2005, when fuel prices shot up so high, I took it to the gas station and filled it up with diesel fuel. And then when the time came, I needed to use that fuel out of the tanks, and I didn't have a good way to get it out. So I did the old siphon with a garden hose trick, and let me tell you, go buy a siphon hose. Don't suck in a mouthful of diesel fuel. It's not worth it. So have the right tool for the job. Think about these things. Whatever you're storing your fuel in, make sure that you're set up with, whether it be a hand pump or an electric pump or whatever, just have what you need. I saw somebody else in the chat talking about their water storage. He painted the exterior of it, and this is a very helpful thing to do. Either use dark color barrels or paint or cover them, or store them inside, because it keeps the algae from growing inside the tanks. Also, one thing I learned was that Sharpie marker will rub off a 5-gallon bucket. So if anybody's got any suggestions for labeling these buckets of, wheat and rice and flour and things like that, sugar, I could use it. I'm thinking a label maker, but they may not stick.
We've been using duct tape. So duct tape.
Duct tape, that's great. Cool. Yeah.
We throw duct
that'll
tape on
work.
it, and then we write it with a Sharpie.
Awesome. And let's see, on your rain barrels, one more thing I didn't mention. A 1-inch hole works a whole lot better than a 1/2-inch spigot. It comes out too slow, and you don't want to waste that time. Also, filters. Coffee filters are great for doing the pond water or your rainwater. We've got a lot of pollen in the air right now, and it actually will like coagulate inside that rainwater. So be sure you've got something to strain it with. The other thing is knowledge. For me, I think this was a huge thing I was after. It was just learning, researching different topics, and figuring out how I want to accomplish them in a way that works for me and within my budget. So you can do all these things, just figure it out. Study. We do the homeschool with our kids, and I love it when they're on YouTube watching shows like I don't mean to give a shameless plug, but Mousetrap Monday. Our kids love it because this guy recreates old mousetraps and invents new ones. And I love to see the mind work and create. The next thing I've got is to practice the skills I'm acquiring. I want to get it right the first time, every time, but that doesn't always happen. The first bacon that I made was extremely salty. It was all you tasted was salt. So don't oversalt your bacon. But even if you do, don't beat yourself up over it. Eat it, enjoy it, and learn from it. The next thing to do that I need to work on is to get comfortable using my storage items. And like I say, try new methods to figure out what works. So, how do we go about raising awareness of temporal preparedness? I feel that it's important to share the need of being self-reliant, share the concerts of clarity that we've heard from our church leaders, encourage others to become more self-reliant, even if that's just buying a package of seeds, whatever the next, we call it the covenant path, so you can almost term that in this, according to being self-reliant, the next step in their process. It's going to be different for each one of us. So don't beat yourself up over it if you're just, buying an extra gallon of water, or, if whatever it is, wherever you are, start and encourage others to start. Ask others for advice if they've got a skill set that you think you could use. Share your projects with others. I also agree that we need to keep some of this quiet. We don't need everybody in the world knowing what we're doing, because I believe times are going to get rough, and they're going to come to those that have. But within a select group, I think it's important to share these things, like tonight. Find a friend who's further down the path than you are, and tag along with them. Ask them what they're doing. And I guess the conclusion that I have, we've been counseled for years to become a self-reliant as we have means and abilities to become. Hard times have always followed the righteous, and that's going to continue. Famines and droughts, natural disasters, job losses, whatever it may be, can be the means of bringing us to our knees in humility. And it's my prayer that I will be humble enough to listen to those concerts of clarity that are provided by the prophets. They've counseled us to be prepared, to be ready, and to stand in holy places. I know that these men hear from God and guide us according to His word, and it's my duty to follow the prophet and become more temporally prepared so that I can be a strength and a support to His work and to those within my stewardship. I know that as I do this, I will be blessed. I know that the Lord will come again. He is the great Redeemer. He is the Savior of all mankind. and he's my elder brother whom I love. And I share my thoughts with you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Wow, thank you, Eric. I think that I need to have Eric and Tyler on here at the same time. Like, I just sit here and I love both of your voices. I'm an auditory learner. And yeah, I loved listening to you talk, and I love Tyler when he talks. I have, Aaron said that he has a voice for TV, and I have a much worse voice, and I really appreciate it. I think that a good orating voice is really nice. So I really enjoyed listening to that. Great advice, great suggestions. We had a couple people in here asking you, Brett, who's from Tennessee, who he's now like, hey, where in North Carolina are you? So you might have Brett knocking on your door here.
That's cool.
Bit. All right.
I've actually been amazed at the people that are actually from our ward that are in this group or that were in our ward. It's amazing. I mean, maybe we're doing something right.
I love this group. I think that I love this group, and I love the fact that you all took time to edify me. You've given me ideas. You've given me steps to things that I can maybe do better. If when I'm moving and I'm getting a property, now I don't have to screw up the water, and so maybe get a little better system off the bat because of the suggestions you provided. So I really appreciate.
Well, you're welcome. Before I bought this property, I actually worked a deal with the former owner where she let me come dig a pond on it. I rented an excavator and I dug this pond because I knew that's what's important to me. I want to be fully self-sufficient. Throughout all this COVID mess, I have worked every day. I guess I'm essential. I mean, I always thought I was, and because I provide for my family, but I didn't. I wasn't privileged to be able to stay home, and I do things on my own, I guess is what I'm getting at. That I want to be as self-reliant so that I don't have to count on anybody. But I got to spend the last 2 days at home, Friday and Saturday, and it was amazing the things I could get done. I wish there were more hours in the day. But I'm rambling now.
Amen. No, not amen to your rambling. Amen to the other part. But you threw in that rambling right at the end. As soon as I said amen, you got me. No, Promised Land says that you're essential to me. Amen to that. That's what I was saying.
Well, I kind of like Promised Land. So.
Oh, good.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's say a closing prayer. Thanks everyone for what they provided and the spirit they brought and the edification that we had. This was awesome. And so we're going to close this closing prayer, and then we'll see what we have after that.
All right. Our dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful that we could gather here tonight for this fireside and discuss some of the important matters that are before us as we plan for our temporal preparedness. We pray that would help us to become more self-reliant, and this will allow us to be on higher ground so that we can help others as we journey into the days where our Savior will return. We pray that would bless each member here tonight, that they will know of our love and our concern for them, and that our friends that we associate with regularly will feel of the Spirit that can be theirs. We pray that we'll be good missionaries. We pray that we will open our mouths and that we will share the gospel and that we will choose the right and strive to be better each day. We pray that would continue to bless our prophet with the guidance that he needs and the endurance to be able to keep moving forward. We're grateful for each person in this chat and for the things that they bring to us, to each of us, and to help us become better people. We're grateful for the scriptures. We're grateful for the light and the truth that is revealed to us as we study them. And we pray that we will be more diligent in our studies and that we will do as our leaders counsel us to do and follow the guidance that they give us. We love thee very much, and we thank thee for the gospel, and we thank thee for our brother Jesus Christ. And we say these things in his name, even Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you. Thank you all. Everything that once again, I've said this for the third time, but everything that they talked about, I didn't do much talking. I mostly just interrupted them. But everything that they provided and what they said and the suggestions they had and the quotes that they also provided and such. Once again, if you want those, you don't have to ask them for it. They've already provided it. It's on the family website. You can download it totally for free. You don't have to sign up for anything. Just click it, view it all at your leisure. So thank you for taking the time not only to come on and talk about this stuff, but to write it down, because some people want this stuff to print off and look over. And so all the guests today did both. They provided the written document so that we could look it over, but also took the time to show up. So thank you for everyone, all the guests, for doing that.
You got it. One quick point of interest. I think it was 98, so however many years, I'm not good at math, but today is the anniversary of when I started my mission in the Canada Winnipeg mission. So,
wow.
Actually, I was in the MTC, but yep, April 18th of 98.
Well, we're moving soon, and so if you wanted to visit here before we moved,
right?
You're more than welcome to, if you can get across the border and get away from the Mounties. But
yeah, I've kind of put a travel restriction on myself. I'm not going anywhere. So.
All right, good. Well, yeah. Well, we love you. Thanks for taking the time to show up, Eric. And one of my best friends growing up was named Eric. We always called him Big E. But so it's really weird that the people I have on are like, yeah, we called him Big E. I don't know why. He wasn't that big, but it's always the way it works. There's somebody in our branch here.
Right.
There's somebody in this branch here that we call Big Bob, and he's like, what, 5'5"? So I don't know how that works. But that's just how nicknames are born. I don't know. Well, we love you. Thank you for taking the time to do this and show up. That was really good.
Well, thanks. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm passionate about it. I spend a lot of time driving for my job, and I usually put you on 1.5 times speed and drive my 3 hours each way, and I love it. It's I'm missing Blake. YouTube. It looks like I watch a lot of videos, but I listen to everything.
Yeah, so do I.
There's a lot of great.
I can't, I can't listen to myself without going on 1.5 speed either. Ashley hates it, but she hates it. I'm always like, speed it up, and she's like, no. But yeah, so no, I like listening to things fast. So let me get this straight: you listen to 1.5 speed, you like Pepsi, and you're impatient.
Right. I am. Yeah. I look. We're brothers from another mother.
Jeez,
I know.
I think so. I think so here, Eric. Well,
you had a Jeep.
I had a Jeep. Holy cow! Wow.
Yep.
Wow. All right.
Yep.
Well, maybe Eric, maybe you'll be my companion when we have to serve second missions.
Sweet. Let's do it.
All right. I'm ready. Let's go. Let's do it. All right, Eric. We love you. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Thanks for all you do.
All right. You're welcome.
Bye.
Wow. I think that I met my doppelganger there with a better accent and a better voice over there. Oh, Aaron wants to call in again. Oh, my goodness. Okay. I guess Aaron wants to call in again. Well, let's give him a call.
Yeah, this is me.
What's up, Aaron?
I had another thought as we were.
Uh-oh. I think did you click mute or something, Aaron? I heard you there for about 2 seconds and then you went dark.
Did I turn things off?
Oh, there, now you're back.
I'm sorry. I just keep pushing buttons. So based on your thing that the why is transformative, maybe we can get into a little bit more of why this is so important to get this done. We keep hearing from President Nelson about the imminent, and I think everyone in this group, your group, believes in the imminent and pending return of the lost 10 tribes. But this quote that you've often shared talks about some prerequisites before the return of those tribes. And we're supposed to be praying and anticipating and watching for this tremendous event that's coming up in our towards us. But remember the prophet Joseph Smith's quote from the teaching of the prophet Joseph Smith, page 17. He said, quote, "And now I am prepared to say by the authority of Jesus Christ that not many years shall pass away before the United States shall present such a scene of bloodshed as has not been a parallel in the history of our nation. Pestilence, hail, famine, and earthquake will sweep the wicked of this generation from off the face of the land, and to open and prepare the way for the return of the lost tribes of Israel." So President Nelson is reminding us so often that this is the next big thing, that the lost tribes are going to come. But do we realize in that quote the prerequisites of that happening? Pestilence, hail, famine, and earthquake. Now, this is my opinion, but I think the prophet Joseph Smith listed those in sequential order. We're already in the devastating sickness. If it holds out true, next is hail, which will destroy the crops of the earth, which is easily followed by a famine.
Yes.
And after all that devastating sickness and all the overspending economically by every country, and then multi-billion-dollar hailstorms, which money cannot solve, with medical personnel totally taxed to the absolute breaking point, and then earthquake strike, the governments are going to be useless, totally useless. So perhaps they aren't going to be in this order. But Prophet Joseph Smith told us that these are absolute prerequisites to the return of the lost 10 tribes. And President Nelson is urging us to prepare for that day. We had better be prepared for the prerequisites of them turning again. Anyway, that was just popped into my mind as we were listening to Eric.
Love it. And with that quote alone, you might not be able to say that those will happen in that order. But like I did in that last video, the Where Are We? When you take that in conjunction with Doctrine and Covenants chapter 45, you get the exact same order. So you get the desolating sickness paving way for the scourge, and then we have the standing in holy places versus cursing God and dying, and then you have the brother taking up sword against the other and killing each other. And so it's the exact same sequence of events. We have the desolating sickness. We then have the men standing in or men and women standing in holy places and are not moved, and other people, cursing God, cursing the church, cursing decisions that are being made in the church, and dying spiritually. And then the very next thing that happens after that, and President Nelson in the last conference did say we need to continue to stand in holy places, and in his footnotes put those verses in Doctrine and Covenants 45. And so, the very next things that happen would then be the hail, followed by, and if we're going to do that with yet another quote from Joseph Smith, I would assume that the hailstorm that's mentioned there and the absence of the rainbow would happen at around the same time, because your crops are going to fail when the hailstorm comes. You then have the famine, and then then we have sword being taken against against your brother, and the bloodshed and the famine. So those are definitely the next series.
Package deal. We might as well believe all of it and not just stick around for the pretty parts. We have to be ready to endure the ugly parts as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Aaron. Was there anything else you had up your hat or down your hat? What's it?
That's it. I'm not going to call in anymore.
Oh, all right. All right. God bless. We love you. Thanks for that. Oh, he hung up on me. My man. That's good. I like it. I didn't have to do anything. Great little tidbit there. I thought we would be gathered before we take up the sword against our neighbor. Yeah, once again, you have to jam that into the points of reference as well. And so during and like I did in the paper, you then also take into consideration Doctrine and Covenants chapter 87, because that gives you even more points of reference, right? And so each one of these things, when you tear them down and tear them down and tear it down, you get more and more points of reference. And there are some things, that I've always just kind of known, but the more I've torn through the points of reference, like I said in the Discord, there's been actually 3 things that I've actually corrected myself with. And one of them was I always knew that the 10 tribes returned before the completion of New Jerusalem, before the anointing took place. But where that took place. So sometimes, I would say that it occurred before the redemption of Zion versus after the redemption. I believe that there is enough information now, looking at these points of references over and over and over again, that we can concretely say that the redemption of Zion actually takes place without the 10 tribes. That is entirely Joseph's boys. And the 10 tribes do not return until 2 years into the famine. And so that's something that once again, if you go over the points of references over and over and over again, that the macro really doesn't change all that much, but you get a little bit more specifics. So you get a little bit more that, oh my goodness, well, if that's before this and this is before this, it's like the deductive reasoning, and then you can start to go, wow, well, that means that this has to take place here. And if you go to Doctrine and Covenants chapter 87, that's the prophecy on war. You find out that at this exact same time period where slaves will rise up against their masters, that is the same exact time period that we're in right now. That is the same time period of the Assyrian and the molestation of the laws of the land. And so, and then it says, in conjunction with this, also, while the slaves are rising up against their masters, it says that a remnant will go forth and tread people under their feet, and that is referring to the Joseph's boys. That is referring to the redemption of Zion. So those things are happening at the same time. And so when people think that there's going to be this massive amount of time to get to New Jerusalem, you're not going to have that much time. Things are going to be in commotion. The pillar of fire is going to appear over Joseph's boys, and that Zion's camp as Joseph leads the redemption of Zion. And then there's going to be a time period where the righteous are going to be gathered in unto New Jerusalem, which is the 10 virgins. So the 10 virgins will be lighting their, trimming their wicks and doing that process of getting in. And then immediately after that is when things start getting poured out. Somebody just asked here, when does it say, thou shalt stand upon the earth when it shall reel to and fro? That is Joseph Smith's patriarchal blessings. You can find those references in my second Joseph Smith to Return paper, the one Joseph Smith to Return Continue. That's in the bottom there, and you'll find that. And obviously that'll take place when the world and the earth reels to and fro as a drunken man, which that takes place after the redemption of Zion. But and people have put that into a couple different locations there, but reasons for that, but all speculative of what could cause that. So anyway, so yeah, there definitely is going to be a place prepared for people to flee to as this takes place, but we don't believe it's going to be that long. Okay, so there's not going to be like 5 years before things start getting bad. Things are going to get bad immediately, and we're going to need to start moving quickly, right? So if people aren't putting the thing here, I'm not going to be able to see, but there isn't very many, so I guess I can read all of them. could being temporally prepared be a part of making our homes holy places? I would absolutely agree with that. And like my understanding, and not only that, I believe that I can prove scripturally the parable of the 10 virgins, not a understanding of it, but the primary interpretation, because parables can be interpreted multiple ways. But for the primary interpretation, there cannot be any lies in it, and there cannot be anything that doesn't make sense. That's what Joseph Smith taught us, that even the symbols in the parables have to make sense because Christ was perfect in his teaching. And so, yes, I absolutely understand that as part of being counted wise is absolutely part of your temporal preparedness, and that can once again also be proved in the Doctrine and Covenants. And I put all those references underneath the 10 virgins for that, where all those things. They talk about being wise servants and what that means temporally speaking. Oh, by the way, my wife's here. So before I get these other questions, they had some questions on drugs. So how long does insulin last?
If it's kept in the fridge till the expiry in the box.
Okay, so Ashley says if it's in the fridge, it'll last till the expiry, which always is on the box. But once it's opened at room temperature, 28 days. Now, what about people who want to get a year's supply of drugs? If they have the refills on the doctor's slip, can they get it all at once?
Is it paid cash?
Yes. So they can do it, but they have to pay cash.
You can't put it through a drug plan.
You can't put it through a drug plan. So the reason why... Huh? At least in Canada. So the big reason why people don't get a year's supply at once is because they're trying to use their drug plans. And so that's the delay. So
sometimes the doctor might say, like, if it's a narcotic or controlled thing.
Yeah, if it's a narcotic thing, they don't want you to take too much in OD and have it too much on your time.
Yeah, so they might just say...
But like heart, blood pressure, things like that, you should be able to get that for a year if you're willing to fork out the money.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So Ashley's saying that once again, as a pharmacist, if you want some of those things like blood pressure pills or even insulin, so long as you keep it refrigerated and you're willing to pay for it, you can get those things for a year. Unless the doctor specifically says otherwise. But Canada, the medical system's free, so find another doctor.
In Canada, you can buy insulin without a prescription.
Oh, and in Canada, you can buy insulin without a prescription. And EpiPens without a prescription. So anyway, there's some information for you. So the big thing there is, once again, money. And so maybe just, same thing you do with food storage. Every month, buy an extra couple packets of insulin or whatever until you get, why are you smiling? Huh? Is that too much? Expensive? Am I saying the wrong word? Is it not package?
No, it's good.
Oh, that is good? Why are you laughing at me? So yeah, buy a couple extra packages, store it in your fridge, and build it up over time. And then don't take it out of the package, I guess, with insulin, and don't let it get to room temperature. So anyway, there's some good information. Anyone has any other questions on pharmaceutical things, Ashley could.
But in Canada, it might be...
What?
In Canada, it might be quite different.
Yes, and in Canada is obviously different than maybe Australia or New Zealand or America, so... Can you put up your timeline graphic? My timeline graphic, Stuart, is found on my family website under the macro last day timeline section. Oh, the part 4, yeah, we have that one done, but we have the visual done. I have the 10 points. The reason why it's taken a long time is because Ashley and I have started going back through our old papers. And some of them we've been editing, editing out mistakes that we've made. Some things I think I can be even clearer, so we're changing it. And what we're going to do when we're done with it is we're going to go to a self-publishing thing online and print off some hard copies of it for us so that we can stick it on our bookcase. It was 10 years ago when Ashley and I first got married. I told Ashley, I don't like the way things are moving, and I can see a time period where they're going to get all the books and they're going to make them all go online, and then they're going to start disappearing them online. And then we're not going to be able to get a hold of this. So for 10 years, Ashley and I have been Ashley's been having to listen to my paranoid brain, and so we've been actually saving up and buying hard copies of books for years now, and so that's why we're doing that. But the macro last day timeline part 4 is actually, in my opinion, the most boring part of the macro, because by the time you get there, we'll have known a lot more specifics. The part that we really need to be focused on is exactly what we just discussed with Aaron. We need this time period right now that we are living in. This is it. The famine, the hail, the things that are right on our doorstep, the 10 virgins parable. That is in our near future. So that's a lot more important. And that macro last day timeline part 2 and 3, we did edit a bit. I changed what one of the 10 things was labeled because I thought it was more inclusive. And so if you go back and look at the macro last day timelines part 2 and 3, you're going to see that what the video has and what I said is slightly different. I made it a little bit more inclusive, so the point could include more things in it. But the visual hasn't changed at all. Some people talk about the call out a lot. I can actually talk a little bit about the call out because this one's really interesting to me, and this is why this one's interesting to me. First and foremost, people need to realize that Satan always mimics truth, right? That was why I put out my paper, Satan the Great Counterfeiter. So that's the first thing people need to realize, is that Satan mimics everything. And so the whole boy who cried wolf thing, that's what Satan does. So Satan will do something, especially in the church, shortly before something similar might be happening. So I would say that's the first thing that people should think about that. In fact, that'll be the last thing I say about that for now. I will get back to that later. But some experiences, let's say, that have happened with me and my wife years ago now. Yeah, over a year, 2 years. Jeez, years ago now that happened to us before we didn't even know who Julie Rowe was. We didn't even know what a call out was. Like, we had never even heard that term before. And the Lord told us things specifically years ago, and we did those things. And then after the fact, we found out about Julie Rowe, and after the fact, we found out about certain things happening, and we went, oh my goodness, this is so weird. This is so weird. So anyway, that's all I'll say about that. I already answered that. Oh man. Did she tell me how to pronounce that name? Kaarina? Which she said was like was it Russian or East European? I can't remember. Kaarina? Was it Eastern European or was it Russian? But she asked a question, or she says that everyone will face tribulation. It'll just be different for everyone. That's accurate. And if you want to know more about that, I would highly recommend seeing Understanding Revelation chapters 1 through 4, where I break down where John, the Revelator, explains that to us. Brett says he keeps telling you the redemption design is coming real soon. Did I say it wasn't coming soon? Brett, did I say the redemption wasn't coming soon? Did I? Brett, you trolling me. I'm with you, Brett. I think the redemption's coming soon. I've been saying that forever. I believe Joseph Smith is already back, and I believe that we're now in the process of Joseph sitting on the mountain and watching us toil in the boat. And those that toil until the fourth watch are going to be the ones that are going to see people walk on water. So, scrolling down. Is that when the Earth moves closer to Heavenly Father's planets? I don't know where I heard that. Yeah, that is part of that process of the Earth moving as a doe being chased. A lot of people are talking about Dr. Pepper and Pepsi. They actually did studies on this, and they found that it was over 75% of people. It was overwhelming. The percentage of people who like either Pepsi or Coke products was based entirely off of what product was available in their high school. It was something like 75 to 80%. And at that point in time, they found this out. Coke just spent millions of dollars making sure that they had the majority of high schools in the United States pump Coke products in. Absolutely brilliant strategy. And so, yeah, we now have more Coke drinkers than Pepsi drinkers entirely because there's a majority of high schools that drink Coke versus Pepsi. And before you ask, yes, my high school sold Pepsi products. And so, very interesting. People don't realize how much they're being programmed when they when they're just going to school and buying a Coke or a Pepsi in their machine at high school. So, would you start moving to Missouri before it got wiped out? I would not go to Missouri personally and flee there if I did not have Joseph Smith in front of me. That's just how I would work. Or the Spirit really said go there, but I'm steering clear until Joseph Smith is in front of me. And at that point in time, if Joseph's in front of me and I die, so be it, right? But I'm definitely not dying in some futile effort without, the command of my prophet. So, I wanted to play your Diet Pepsi. Our 1-year prescription is having Ashley as the next door neighbor move here. Aaron, Utah rejected us too, so Utah rejected us too. They wanted us to. Utah was even more. Utah really wanted us to Ashley to work as a low grade. What is it called? Intern. I've been using it all night. Intern for like 16 or 2,400 hours. It's crazy, but and so, at that point in time, it would make more sense for us to move to some place like Michigan, work for a year, and then move again if that was going to happen. So, anyway, all the states refused us except for, obviously, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Texas. So, and people keep talking about moving to places. Jeez, that would be kind of cool, but I don't want to... Brett says that I wouldn't get in trouble, but if I said, hey, let's all move to this place, but I think I'd get in trouble. So I will let one of you say, hey, let's all move to one location, and let's all move where Mike moves. I'll let you do that. I'm not going to be one to do that. I'm going to, walk sheepishly backwards and throw my shoulders up and shrug. Okay. Okay, I'm scrolling down here. I'm not seeing any at symbols, so I'm just scrolling down.
What are the righteous people who are in Missouri right now?
The righteous people that are in Missouri now, I would assume that if something were to happen, they would be called out just like Abraham and Lot, and just like what happened in apparently John Taylor's dream as recorded by Wilford Woodruff, that there was people who left the city before it got leveled. So... Is there any other questions that you see here? I'm scrolling down. People are talking with each other, which is good. Somebody says Russian. All right. So I got... But she didn't say if I pronounced it even close to correct. She's like, that was horrible. Huh? Call her Cat instead? Is that what somebody said? Oh, that's what she said? Cat? Oh, that's easy. Jeez. Cat. Kaarina. But yeah, it sounds so much cooler. Like, you can't say that without trying to sound Russian. Kaarina. It's awesome. Okay, I'm scrolling through here. I don't like Coke Politics. Yeah, I don't like Koch's politics either. People are saying Pepsi's yuck. Somebody asked where the II LDS Archives come from. The II is something that came up when I was a teenager. It just means the two. Like it only takes two to start a club. It only takes two to tango, as they say. So the two, it was started as the two, and it included me and my best friends growing up, and it also included my wife and, at that time, girlfriend. And it's changed, over time. Now it just means me and my wife. My friends have kind of moved on from me. They left the group. And so the two is just me and my wife, the two. And so, that's what it's been. And we've had that when we were, playing video games and stuff. And so, I'd have my name and then an underscore and an I for two. So it was just, the concept of me and my wife, the two of us. So that's just what it's become to mean. And when we started the LDS channel, it was just supposed to be an appendage to our family's website. So it was just going to be it was going to be where I was going to store all of the papers and documentation online as well as a secondary source. And in fact, I'll be going over that a little bit in my wake up story next week. So if anybody else wants to send in wake up stories, I'll be going over those next week. If you want to call in, then if anybody wants to call in, they can call in and tell their wake up story, or they can send it in and we'll read it. So, but if you don't want us to include your name, please say this is my wake up story, but try to keep it anonymous. That way we can have time. Or send it to us and make it anonymous. So don't say your name or don't say anything there that would give you away, and then we'll read it. Oh, was there anything else? People are saying that Texas is one of the most affordable. That's interesting because Ashley and I have been looking at properties all over the place, and Texas is pretty average. As far as places are concerned. Utah, Idaho are absolutely ridiculous. Like, absolutely ridiculous. And Wyoming was also really high. So, Idaho, Utah, and Wyoming, as far as national averages were concerned, were very high. You want to talk about really good property that you can actually raise animals, raise crops on, and they're actually still relatively cheap. You're talking about West Virginia, Michigan, Wisconsin, Mississippi, Alabama. Those are your states where you're getting into things that are really cheap and that you're going to get a lot out of your money. Texas is actually pretty middle of the road as far as costs are concerned. You can get in Wisconsin, you can get a 10 to 40 acre farm with all of the dressing. So what is it called? Fixing, all the fixings. You can get all of that for in Wisconsin. You can get that all for under $500,000, 500,000. In Texas, you're going to get a property that's about 5 acres with very little on it, and you're going to be pushing 500 or more. And we've been checking out properties from San Antonio all the way up to Dallas. So it's middle of the ballpark. So when people say Texas is actually cheap, it's pretty average. People are going to Texas because it's stable. It's got a great business friendly model. It's got a solid tax system, but once again, it's not the best tax system in the United States. It's very middle of the road on most things, and people are putting more questions. Okay, so I'll scroll down. What are the questions?
Do all of your papers have videos?
Do all my papers have videos? No, and some of my papers I don't put online. Next question. Any thoughts on the pillar of fire that Lehi dreamed about in vision and that protected Lehi and Nephi when they were in prison? Also, pillar of fire with the children of Israel. I don't know if you have Discord, Antonia, but I actually posted a quote in there by Orson Pratt talking about the redemption of Zion and the how it's going to resemble the children of Israel and how there will be a pillar of fire as well. But that there's a quote by Orson Pratt. I put it in Discord, and I've had it in a couple of my papers. But you could look up Orson Pratt, Pillar of Fire, Redemption of Zion, and he'll basically lay that all out for you pretty good. So you were so inspired to not make it the II Mormon Archives because you would have had to change it. Yeah, I've never liked calling myself Mormon. That's been one of those things like priestcraft that I have been a lone voice in the wilderness over. So for a very long time. And so when the President Nelson changed it, I was like, oh, thank goodness. So no, I've definitely never called myself a Mormon. So what do you think of the teaching that it's okay to work on Sunday to provide for one's family? I would think that that's entirely based on the profession. And that's been actually talked about by prophets and apostles as well. You can't say that there's not going to be any heart attacks on Sunday, and you can't say there's not going to be any houses that burn down on Sunday. And Jesus taught it best himself as well. Did Claudia just delete that? What? I see message retracted. I think there was a question there. But Jesus said it best himself when he also said that what man of you has an animal that falls into a pit on Sunday, doesn't go off and rescue the animal? And so there is certain jobs that are required that you could do on a Sunday, I would think, based off of what the prophets have said. But as far as just general jobs, I'll leave that up to the discretion of the individual, obviously, in the spirit. I don't see any more questions here. Do all these papers? Okay, so I think that was it. Is there any, it's going down to the bottom. Idea, what about your unpublished papers? How about we give you our birthday address and $9 a month? And just kidding. There you go. There you go. Yeah. Oh, good point. Maybe I'm hiding those papers because I'm just hiding them behind a paywall. That's a good point, Aaron. Maybe I'm saving them. I'm saving them so when I'm whetting people's appetites, so that way when I start my subscription fee, then I can be like, hey, this is only members only. I should start including Discord link in my descriptions. I can't do that, Fire and Ice, because the descriptions go dead within 24 hours. And so you're going to have to get them directly from Blake sent to you, and you're going to have to sign up immediately, or the link goes dead. Okay, so don't know if I'm having any other questions here. Don't know if there's any other questions here. Oh, so I should provide an explanation about Discord then. I should do that. So in the description box, I'll have to do that. I'll add a description of what this Discord is and how people can get into it. That's a good idea. So I will do that. And I don't think Blake will mind. I'll then have to add his email address to the things as well. So yeah, I can definitely do that. All right. Well, is there any other questions? We're going down to the wire here. I could get cut off at any moment. I like how people are talking to each other. Oh, this one here says Claudia. She didn't do the @ right. She didn't do the @ symbol right, so it didn't pop up. Oh, because she put archive instead of archives. Will I not be invited to Zion? Oh, if she has a mortgage? No, is that Claudia?
Yeah, what happens to people?
Oh, what happens to people with a mortgage? I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. I know we're told not to have debt, and so people can decide that on their own. And so people could maybe justify having a mortgage. To me, I think there's a case to be made if you were under your mortgage. So if you sold your home, you would not be in debt. I think there's a case at least to be made there. I don't know if it's a solid case, but there's at least a case to be made there. There's absolutely no case to be made for having $300,000 debt mortgaged against a $150,000 home. And so if that's the case, you need to get out from under it right away. If not, leave that up to the discretion of you and the Lord. So I can only say what the prophets and apostles have said. And that's just, avoid debt like the plague. So that's what they keep saying. So there has to be a reason for it. So somebody says you can make the link never expire. Well, you're gonna have to talk to Blake about that because it's not my Discord. He's the king. He's got the crown, and so he's gonna have to. If there is a way to do that, let him know, and then he can give me that link, and then I can provide it. I've been focused on studying lately, and are you working on any papers? I'm working on like all of them simultaneously because we're going back through them all. Going back through them all and going through them one at a time. So, and so we're doing that. And at the same time, Ashley has thrown up the part 4 for the macro last day timeline and visual. Because Ashley's the one that's been primarily doing that. No, put it up into a visual, not online. She's put it into a visual. So she's put the macro timeline part 4 into a visual. Yeah, we haven't posted the paper yet, but that paper, we've already got the points, and we just need to flesh it out because those papers aren't that big, right? We get the visual, we put the points down, the top 10 points in each section, and then we just describe it briefly and then tell you what papers and sources to go to get more information on. We try to keep them, between 30 to 45 minutes in length for the video. They're not supposed to be an hour and a half. They're supposed to be bite-sized pieces so you can get the macro of macro and then go get the nitty-gritty of where those things are talked about in the other papers. And so that actually doesn't take us long to do. The visual that Ashley puts together actually takes longer than the actual papers. So anyway. Some folks asking for your thoughts on whether Joseph Smith may actually be here, maybe newbies. I believe he's here. But because we definitely know he comes back, and we know that he works prudently for a while, and then he comes out in the open. Exactly like what happened with Jesus walking on water. Jesus came back, he was sitting on a mountain, and he was watching the apostles toil in the storm, and he watched them until the 4th watch, and then he came down to them and walked on water. You can go and see or read Joseph Smith's steamboat dream as well as the dilapidated barn to get an idea of how that ties directly into the time period of Joseph Smith's return. So anyway, I'll scroll up here. There is no indication of papers that we've gone through. Some of them I've edited so much that I'm actually going to remove them from YouTube and put it up again. Like my Jesus plus Isaiah macro last day timeline, I'm actually going to remove that because it was really unclear in some parts because when I number it, people really expect it to be like 1 happens, then 2 happens, then 3 happens. And because of that, I need to be as precise as possible. And that was my mistake. And so we've gone back through that and made it as precise as possible. So we've edited that out. So I might actually remove that video and re-record it. But the other ones, they're not huge differences. And so I don't record a new video, and I don't tell people. I could in Discord say, hey, we just re-uploaded this paper and edited it. The biggest reason why we're doing it is we want to make sure that the papers are perfect before we pay to have them published in a hard copy version, right? And that's the reason why. And so maybe what we can do, and I know it's going to scare people with priestcraft, but once that's done, we can get the PDF version of it, and we can print off these books on a self-publishing site. And if people wanted to print off a copy themselves, we could give them that file, and they could go to the same site and do it themselves as well, right? So they could also do that. Another thing that we could do is if Ashley and I went to the site and bought a bunch of them at once, it would be cheaper, and then we could sell them at cost if people wanted it. But we wanted to make it as clear-cut as possible, and the reason was this because we wanted those hard copies. And so that won't happen for a while. I would say probably a month, and then I'm probably going to start printing off some hard copies so that I have them. I should start a pay site. I would be number 1. Please tease us with what other papers you've been working on. I think that's it. Oh, there's more. Are there any clues to how Joseph Smith will work with current leaders if he takes over? I don't think that there's going to be a problem. I think Joseph Smith is going to show up and take over, and I think that it's going to be very clear for everyone. Somebody says maybe in the name of the paper put version 1.1, 1.2. That's a smart idea. That's a smart idea. We'll start putting version numbers. Thanks, Gabe. That's smart. I'll definitely do that. So Scott, I'm pretty sure he has deliberately left specific dates off. Also, your @ has to be this exactly. I saw that, so I didn't see Scott's, whatever Scott was up here. Scott, oh, here? I'm trying to figure out the dates on your Mac. There is no dates. I don't have dates. One video, my August 2020 video, I have dates, and that's another one of those videos that I might just take down, because there were some things that, once again, I could have been clearer, and in that video somebody asked me to throw up hypothetical dates, so I did, and people still ask me about those dates. Those dates are hypotheticals, and that's the problem as soon as you start throwing out dates. And so yes, I had hypothetical dates that you could have the redemption of Zion, by a certain date, let's say 2022 or 2024, and then you could have the 10 tribes returning, let's say 2024 to 2026. You have the seventh seal being open, 2027, et cetera, et cetera. So, but it's all speculative, right? And so it's much better just to look at the actual events. So anyway. Isaiah is one of those ones that I want to go through again, because I think that sometimes I was a little too broad when speaking of the remnants, and I can be a lot more specific. Sometimes the remnants referring to the Jews going over to Old Jerusalem. Sometimes the remnants referring to Joseph's boys. It's specific. And I could have done a better job explaining that. So. What do you do when you're not studying? Do you work, game, take care of kids, etc.? Homeschool? Yes. I do all of those things. And mostly try not to go crazy. As, Ashley and I haven't gone to a movie in like 5 years. 3. I think it's been since Kaylin. Over that, yeah. It's been 3. Oh my goodness! So it's been like 3 years. We haven't gone out to a movie, and COVID's happened. I'm in lockdown, so mostly just kind of walking around, just trying not to go crazy, doing papers, doing things with my children. But it snowed again here today, and so going outside isn't exactly still kosher. So I'm basically a crazy hermit here. Every once in a while, I need to look in the mirror and be like, okay, yeah. Definitely need to shave today, but that's basically what I've been doing. So I also write a lot, and so writing's what I do. So I do a lot of, not just religious papers, but I also do other writing. So I write a lot. So that's what I do. I agree with what John says there about hunting patterns. Sequence, yes, Aaron. The sequence is the most important thing. And I think that's, I've scrolled up. Is there any more at the bottom? Nope. Is that it? Nope. This person did do the at right here. Will you talk about the Abinadi paper and your new thoughts on the remnant returning? The Abinadi paper, I don't think, maybe it's changed a bit. I don't think it really did. I think it's pretty similar. Like, I don't think it's changed much. I think that we still have the 2 groups. We have Alma's group, and we have the other group with the king back in the city, and the king in the city had to fight battles or try to fight battles, and they died and died and died, and had to be humbled through much bloodshed and horrible things. And Alma's group basically had a nice camping trip for a decade or however long it was, off in the woods, and then eventually the the group came and saved the other group. And I still think that could be the 10 tribes coming back, because we know that's going to change things a lot when the 10 tribes come back, as far as the Assyrian and its influence. Yeah, Gabe, I've been trying to do that with the Macro Last Day Timeline, and I've been trying to do that with that series. And so I've picked in the first Macro Last Day Timeline, I picked the 4 broadest of broad topics. The Christ appearing in the Adam-on-Diamond meetings, Christ appearing in New Jerusalem, Christ appearing to Old Jerusalem, Christ appearing to the world. That's the macro of macros. That's the zooming out the most. And then for the next 3 papers, what I did is I picked the 10 most concrete bullet points that we can point to for the first time period, the best 10 points that we can concretely point to in the next time period, and then the 10 points that will lead us to the great and dreadful day. And so that's what the point of the Macro Last Day Timeline is. And like I said, I roughly say what happens at this point, and then I have a list of papers to see. And it would be interesting if people would send in things more, because if somebody sent something in and said, hey, this paper talks about this point, hey, I will just put it in there in the papers to see there. So as it stands, I'm just mostly putting in my papers and some Brother Hiram Andrus papers that talk about those subjects. Do you see the church failing in membership from now until the events of the redemption of Zion? I don't believe that the acceleration of the work has anything to do with the number of members. People like to talk like they talk about, the work will accelerate, the work will accelerate. See how many temples we have. See how many millions of members we have. I don't believe that that's what the acceleration is. I believe that you can find what the acceleration of the work is in 1 Nephi, chapter 14, verse 14. Oh, that's off the top of my head. It's the verse that the prophet said that you will live to see these things. And it was when the power of the Lord descended upon the saints who were scattered upon all the face of the land. And that Nephi saw that had happened. That is the accelerating of the work. That is when the work accelerates. I think that has already taken place, and it's going to continue to take place. The Lord doesn't want 1 million people in the terrestrial kingdom. He wants people in the celestial kingdom. And we need to start realizing that the Lord is it 2 Nephi 14:14? That's what somebody's saying? Lindy's saying? Do I have my scriptures here? Turn on the light. Look up 1 Nephi 14:14. First Nephi. She says second, but check mine first. 1 Nephi 14:14. And I, Nephi, saw that the Spirit of the Lord descended upon the people of God, and they were scattered upon the land, and they were armed with righteousness. Was it not for 14:14?
They were armed with righteousness and with power.
Yeah, armed with righteousness and with power. Yep, no, 1 Nephi 14:14. So.
But also the 10 virgins.
Somebody says here, I wouldn't say that says nobody's seen Joseph Smith in person. I would say that if you haven't seen him in person, just to be crystal clear. What was that? What did you say?
Oh, no.
Okay. So anyway, 1 Nephi 14. Yeah, Brother Hiram Andrus said that we need to be more concerned about spiritual self-reliance, because those who have their food storage will barely get by. Yeah, there's a few things that Brother Hiram Andrus taught that I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get into that. But we're definitely there's definitely a connection between temporal preparedness and spiritual preparedness. I'd have to also see what he was saying in context, but so. I'm scrolling up here, but yeah, that's what I think what the acceleration of the work means. So when people talk about the work accelerating, The Lord wants fruit, right? He doesn't, I mean, think about the parable of the olive trees in the vineyard in Jacob chapter 5. The Lord doesn't just want fruit. Remember, he went in there and he found some fruit that was like, ugh, this is not good fruit. He didn't just want the trees to grow fruit. That wasn't acceptable. He wanted good fruit. There was a specific fruit that the Lord wanted. The hastening of the work is the last time that the Lord goes into the vineyard with the servant, which, by the way, somebody actually sent me a copy of that. I should ask the individual if I can share it with the group, because they did a very good job doing this. Because the parable of the nobleman and the olive trees in Doctrine and Covenants 101 fits into Jacob chapter 5. It's the same servant at the same times. And what they do one last time is they go in and they get the good fruit. They hasten the work one last time to get people to that celestial level. So when we talk about the hastening of the work, it's the hastening of getting people to a celestial level, right? And the Lord tried it two ways, and now he's going to try the third way. With the early saints, he tried to do it quick, like pulling off a Band-Aid, and it didn't work. The second way was, fine, we're going to put you over here safely in the Utah Valley, and we're going to let you mature over a long period of time. It must needs be that my people go and learn line upon line, precept upon precept, and grow into this. The problem with that is that we became untimely fruit, meaning we had time to grow into ripe fruit, but we didn't. We became stagnant, and the fruit became untimely fruit. And the third way he's going to do it is he's going to come in with a whirlwind, and he's going to shake the tree, and all the untimely fruit's going to go flying, and things are going to get, worked one last time to push people into the state that they're supposed to be in or not, right? And that's the last way that he's going to do things. And he gave us opportunities to humble ourselves and do it. And when that failed, he's going to humble us for us to save as many of us as possible. So thanks for responding so well. I bet it can get crazy. No, not really. Sometimes when I'm answering a lot of questions fast, I will say things incorrectly. So I'll be quoting that streaming service. What was it? I said Living Scriptures, but I meant I said LDS Living, but I meant Living Scriptures. So I said it that backwards. So sometimes when I'm talking fast, trying to answer a bunch of questions, I will say things incorrectly. So. Okay, I think that's it. I think we've done it. We've gone about 3 hours and 18 minutes. It hasn't cut us off, but looks like we're out of questions here. Thank you, everyone. Oh, somebody just asked. Wondering what y'all thoughts. I don't want to cut her off. Is there any more questions before we break off?
She asked, President Nelson said he was more concerned about our spiritual welfare than temporal.
Who said this?
Angie. And then people were
Said who? President Nelson?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then people were responding, well, if you're spiritually prepared, you would have heeded the temporal preparation.
Yeah, but see, the temporal preparedness and the spiritual preparedness, what people need to understand is this, is that one could move you into a terrestrial sphere and one could move you into a celestial sphere. And so, when I said something along the lines of, members are worried about not walking on water and they should be more worried about getting in the boat, right? Am I saying that we shouldn't worry about rowing to the fourth watch? Is that what I'm saying? Or is what I'm saying that none of you got in the boat? Like, there's a sequence to things. And so President Nelson saying, yeah, it's more you need to get a spiritual conversion before you get a temporal preparedness, because if you don't get the spiritual conversion, you won't get in the boat. But once you get in the boat, he's not saying you don't have to row to the fourth watch. That's your temporal preparedness. So, what a lot of these prophets are saying is you shouldn't be worried about steps that you're not on. Right? And I said the same thing when I taught celestial law. If you don't understand the law of sacrifice, if you don't understand these things, like I said in that video, you need to stop this video and not learn this. You're not ready for it. And there is a lot of members that aren't ready for learning that there's going to be huge famines and devastations and yada, yada, yada. They're not ready for it. They need to gain a spiritual conversion first. And once they gain that spiritual conversion, there you go, right? Okay, well, hopefully that answered that question. We love you all. Everyone's saying good night. That's awesome. Do you think it's a coincidence there's no verified picture of Joseph Smith Jr.? And there is. Where can we find it? I don't think you're going to have to worry about that. I think that if Joseph appeared or an angel appeared, you're not gonna be able to rely on what you see to discern a spirit of the Lord or spirit of the devil anyway. So you're gonna have to know how to. If you see something of that nature, let me just be so bold to warn you that you shouldn't be jumping on your knees and worshiping it. The first thing you should be doing is verifying that it is of the Lord. Okay, there is many examples of angels of light coming and deceiving people. So it's not as simple as just, ooh, I felt good when something showed up. You need to know how to discern spirits, and that should be what you should be doing. Not oh, will I recognize Joseph Smith's face? If a man showed up and said, I'm Joseph Smith Jr., and I thought it looked like what could be Joseph Smith Jr., that's not going to be good enough for me. I'm going to want to use the power of my priesthood, the authority that I hold, to make this individual identify themselves. And that will be far more powerful and more important than anything I'm seeing with my eyes. I'm not seeing any more ats. Well, we love you all. Thanks, everyone, for their awesome contributions. Thank everyone for coming, and especially for the guests that took time out of their days to get people here and edify us all. And I know that the Lord is pleased with us with our efforts when we do these things, and we do it without a desire for money or praise or any of those things. We do it because we want to help each other. We can stumble and we can fall on the way, but we love you. We love each other, and we need to forgive each other. We need to get better. We love you. God bless. Godspeed. Keep the faith, and we'll talk to you soon.